In Datina City, an adventurer wannabe named Aizen tried to join an adventurer's guild. However, he was rejected once again. Confused, he asked for an explanation, as he had graduated at the top of his class from the Guildmaster Training Academy and could have worked as a staff member. The Guildmaster explained that the rejection was due to the current trend. Aizen argued that numbers alone could not determine an adventurer's true ability. He suggested changing the evaluation criteria so the guild could stand out from the rest. However, the Guildmaster refused, saying he would not act differently from the other guilds. He then told Aizen to give up on joining his guild. Aizen walked down to the first floor of the building after his application was rejected. This was his 10th rejection. Adventurers were people who took on dangerous monster hunts and dungeon explorations. Through these missions, they gained fame and wealth using only their own skills. It was a popular profession. To support them, adventurers' guilds were established. These organizations helped by arranging jobs and sharing information. New guilds appeared constantly, leading to fierce competition to attract adventurers. The leaders of these guilds, known as guildmasters, managed operations and supported adventurers according to their own beliefs. Aizen's dream was to become one. The adventuring industry was always in need of more people. However, Aizen struggled to get hired because of a strange new trend. He found it odd that people relied entirely on status measurements to judge adventurers. Despite this, Aizen refused to change his views. A year earlier, the Merchant Guild introduced a new tool called the Status Scouter. It displayed a person's abilities as numerical values, providing a clear way to measure an adventurer's strength. The numbers were fairly accurate, and soon adventurers were judged based on these statistics alone, while skill had always determined an adventurer's worth. This new system turned society into one that relied purely on numbers. But Aizen had his own beliefs. Since childhood, he had been able to see mysterious letters that no one else could. When he entered the training academy for guildmasters, he learned to control these letters and eventually understood their meaning. During his time at the academy, instructors often looked down on students with low grades, even if they dreamed of becoming guildmasters. One day, Aizen witnessed a student being harshly criticized. Unable to stay silent, he confronted the instructor, arguing that grades weren't the only measure of a good guildmaster. He pointed out that the student had a natural talent for bringing people together. The instructor dismissed Aizen's argument, insisting that grades were the most important factor. Despite this, the bullied student was grateful for Aizen's support. He admitted he had been thinking about dropping out to take over his family's business. Before leaving, he encouraged Aizen to keep pursuing his dream. That moment strengthened Aizen's resolve. He swore to prove that a person's worth couldn't be determined by numbers alone. A sudden commotion broke out nearby. An adventurer burst through the door, bringing news for someone named Varin. His name was Salvio, the leader of the A-ranked party, Silver Wolf Brigade. Varin, looking nervous, asked what the news was about. She appeared poor, her equipment worn and dirty. Salvio excitedly announced that their party had been promoted to S-rank. Varin's eyes welled up with tears. She was overjoyed. She had worked hard, and now they had finally reached the highest rank. However, things didn't go as she expected. Salvio continued speaking, saying they needed to recruit stronger members. Because of that, they had to make space on the team. Aizen, who had been listening, could already tell where this was going. Salvio then declared that they had already processed Varin's removal from the guild. She was officially kicked out of the party. Stunned, Varin asked why. She had worked so hard for them. Salvio simply responded that it was because of her low stats. Aizen quickly understood the reason. It was part of a growing trend. The Status Scouter hadn't just led to a world ruled by numbers, it had also caused the rise of the expulsion rush. High-ranking parties were now desperate to recruit stronger members, so they rushed to remove their weaker teammates before others could. Varin started crying and held on to Salvio, begging him not to throw her out. Salvio pushed her away and called her a failure. Seeing how desperate she was, Aizen finally understood how bad the current situation had become. Adventurers with higher stats were rising in rank, and their achievements were impressive. While that was true, people only cared about numbers and ignored everything else. Aizen activated his appraisal eyes to check their hidden skills. As he focused, letters appeared, revealing the adventurer's hidden abilities. This was why Aizen refused to change his perspective. He could see what others couldn't. He first examined Salvio and discovered that he had sturdy body, a skill that boosted both attack and defense by 1.4 times. It was a powerful ability, but it was common among high-ranking adventurers. Next, Aizen turned his attention to Varin. As he read through the skills she possessed, something completely shocked him. Varin kept begging Salvio in a trembling voice, asking for another chance. Salvio smirked and told her to show her stats. She activated the Status Scouter, and a visual window appeared, displaying her numbers. When Salvio saw them, he burst into laughter. Her stats were only in the 3-digit range, while the rest of the party had 4-digit stats. He called her a loser and said she was the weakest in the group. According to him, she was nothing but a coward. useless in battle. The only thing she was good for was checking traps. He made it clear that they had no need for her. Virin looked completely defeated. Aizen watched the scene unfold and questioned whether high-ranking adventurers should behave this way. He wondered if this was how guilds were supposed to operate. Was it really okay to cast people aside just because of their stats? His hands clenched into fists as he made up his mind. He didn't want to stand by and watch people be discarded like this. To change things, he would build his own guild. With that decision, Aizen stepped forward and addressed the group. He asked if he could recruit Virin since Salvio was kicking her out. Salvio, surprised, turned to him and demanded to know who he was. Virin also looked confused. Aizen confidently stated that he had just formed a guild and was looking for members. Since she was now free, he wanted to take her in. Salvio burst into laughter again and told Aizen to listen to his advice. Virin had the lowest stats. Aizen didn't listen and went straight to Virin to ask for her hand. He grabbed the status scouter and smashed it on the floor. He told her she didn't need to rely on numbers anymore and promised to help her see her true worth. Then he invited her to join him. Feeling moved, Virin agreed and stood up. Salvio laughed and congratulated her, mentioning that some reckless guilds didn't use the scouter for recruitment. Jokingly, he told them to do their best and aim for S rank like his team. Aizen then asked Salvio if Virin was really the one responsible for avoiding traps in their party. For now, he wished them luck in dodging traps without her. Salvio was caught off guard and stood there speechless as Aizen walked out. A moment later, he flared up, but his teammates quickly calmed him down. Outside, Virin learned about hidden skills. Aizen explained that these were special abilities that the status scouter couldn't detect. He said he could see them using his appraisal eyes. He then revealed that Virin had a hidden skill called Super Sixth Sense. According to him, this skill allowed her to sense the locations of traps and monsters before encountering them. Virin insisted that all she did was walk in front of the group. Aizen explained that most people use their hidden skills without realizing it. He asked if she had ever avoided a certain path simply because it felt dangerous. He then pointed out that the only reason she had survived as the Vanguard or Human Shield was because her Super Sixth Sense had guided her and the party away from danger. Aizen also asked if she ever felt like she instinctively knew a monster's weak spot. When Virin's expression changed, he realized she was already aware of that part of her skill. He then asked why she had kept such an ability hidden. Virin responded that she was never given the chance to speak. Hearing this, Aizen told her not to hold back anymore. He encouraged her to use her full power and to speak her mind freely. He then formally introduced himself as her new employer. Flustered, Virin said she looked forward to working with him. When Aizen spoke formally, she asked him to be more casual. He agreed, and her expression brightened. She then assured him that she would be at his service and asked about his guild. Aizen shared his goal to create a guild for outcasts, built by outcasts. He wanted to change the world so that people with valuable skills but low stats would be properly recognized. He was even willing to risk his life to make this vision a reality. Meeting Virin was the first step toward forming his yet unnamed guild. With determination, he vowed to put an end to the expulsion rush. Aizen admitted that he hadn't established the guild yet, and that Virin was his first recruit. Worried, Virin asked if she had been scammed, but Aizen reassured her that he truly planned to create a guild. First, he needed to submit an application to the Adventurers Guild Alliance's headquarters, which meant they had to travel to Viam City, a faraway place. If they just sat around, they would only end up starving. Aizen had even gone out of his way to recruit Virin because he wanted to help her build confidence. The first step was to change her worn-out appearance. He suggested getting her new equipment. Later, at the equipment shop, Virin nervously asked Aizen how she looked in her new gear. He told her she looked great, making her face turn bright red. She became so flustered that she could barely speak. The shopkeeper explained that, despite being made of cotton, the armor was sturdy, and the light leather gear was surprisingly durable. The rapier was sharp enough to pierce through chainmail. Aizen called it excellent but was concerned that the design looked too delicate for an adventurer. The shopkeeper then explained that this was the golden age of adventuring, and many adventurers now cared more about style than practicality. Somehow Aizen found that reasoning believable. Virin was too shocked to speak as she examined her new equipment. Aizen noticed her reaction and asked if she liked it. Embarrassed, Virin said she couldn't afford such an item. Aizen reassured her, saying it was a gift for joining his guild. Still flustered, Virin asked if he was really sure. Aizen told her it wasn't a big deal. In his mind, this was necessary to help Virin regain her confidence. Since she would be working for him, he saw it as an investment. To him, it was worth it if it meant seeing Virin looking this adorable. His words completely flustered her, leaving her blushing. Afterward, they headed to the Avalon Guild to take on their first assignment. Virin was amazed by how impressive the place looked. As they walked in, Aizen mentioned that he knew someone there who could help them. Just then, a hawk flew by, startling Virin. A voice called out to the hawk, naming it Harrier, and soon a woman came running over, apologizing. When she saw Aizen, she greeted him excitedly, saying it had been a long time. Aizen returned the greeting. calling her Kagarina and acknowledging Harrier as well. He then casually complimented Kagarina's new uniform design. Shyly, Kagarina asked if it looked good on her. Aizen praised her red outfit, recalling that her old academy uniform also had red accents. Blushing, Kagarina insisted she wasn't happy about his compliment, but Harrier seemed to disagree. She kept denying it, but the hawk clearly doubted her words. Frustrated, Kagarina scolded Harrier, saying a mere bird shouldn't tease humans. Watching them interact, Aizen could tell they were getting along better than ever. Aizen introduced Virin to Kagarina. On top of that, Kagarina was actually the only daughter of the Avalon Guild's guild master. Virin quickly bowed her head as a greeting. However, Kagarina told her not to be too formal since she preferred casual interactions with adventurers. She then asked if Aizen had come to share the good news that he was finally hired, and even brought his cute girlfriend along. But Aizen made it clear that he had decided to stop trying to get employed. Instead, he planned to start his own guild. Kagarina was surprised. She had expected this to happen eventually, but not this soon. Harrier agreed and added something more. Kagarina nodded, saying that Aizen was always this stubborn. Virin, feeling confused, asked if Kagarina had just responded to Harrier. Kagarina confirmed that she could communicate with animals, not just Harrier. Aizen explained that this was Kagarina's hidden skill, called Zooglot. She used this ability in her guild management duties. He also shared that Kagarina was the first person to believe in his appraisal eyes and the existence of hidden skills. They had even been schoolmates before. For some reason, Virin felt uneasy. Aizen noticed and asked if something was wrong. Virin quickly denied it, insisting that nothing was wrong and that she wasn't jealous or anything. Aizen then assumed she was jealous of Kagarina's ability to talk to animals. Somehow, both Kagarina and Harrier could tell that Aizen was completely missing the point. Kagarina thought Aizen had discovered Virin's hidden skill. Aizen confirmed that Virin was the first member of his guild. Kagarina quickly told Virin to inform her if Aizen did anything suspicious so the guild alliance could imprison him. Aizen asked Kagarina not to make him sound like a bad person. Virin said it was fine, and even though she had only recently met Aizen, she could tell from their interactions that he was trustworthy. Harrier agreed. Kagarina blushed and admitted that Aizen was a good person. Harrier sighed and Kagarina told him to be quiet. Aizen then explained that he needed money to start a guild. Since he had nothing, he set aside his pride and asked Kagarina for any available job. Kagarina refused, saying she couldn't give regular commissions to a two-person group made up of a single adventurer and a recent graduate. Aizen then asked about irregular commissions. Kagarina was surprised and realized she couldn't hide things from an academy graduate. She admitted that there were some internally processed commissions. Virin asked what those were. Aizen explained that they were commissions nobody wanted to take. Guilds mediate commissions and provide support, but adventurers often choose the ones that bring in more profit and avoid the riskier ones. Virin realized that this left the people who requested those commissions in a difficult situation. In short, internally processed commissions were tasks the guild had mistakenly accepted, but struggled to assign. However, the guild couldn't simply go back and refuse the request, as that would hurt its reputation. Kagarina further explained that the guild would usually reach out to affiliated parties or high-ranking adventurers they had connections with, and offer extra compensation to complete these commissions. Virin now understood why they were called internally processed. Kagarina added that even with the extra payment, adventurers often still refused. Aizen asked Kagarina if she ever wanted to get rid of those requests and inquired about what was left. He said they had the same goals in this matter. Even Harrier agreed, but Kagarina insisted that Harrier didn't understand at all. Aizen then asked what Harrier meant. Somehow, the hawk managed to convince Kagarina to give up. She slammed a huge stack of commissions on the table, all listed with multiple stars. Aizen thanked her and reached for one, but Kagarina quickly slammed her hands on the table again. She warned him not to overdo things or he might actually die this time. Aizen was moved by her concern and thanked her for always worrying about him. He promised to be careful. Kagarina, however, just pouted in frustration. Aizen flipped through the commissions while Kagarina let out a sigh. After looking through them, he finally picked one and asked Kagarina to handle the procedures. The two girls were shocked when they read the document. Not long after, in a dark dungeon, Virin trembled in fear. She couldn't even find the right words to speak. Aizen told her to calm down, but she couldn't. She knew death was inevitable. No matter how she looked at it, diving into a maximum difficulty dungeon was far too reckless. Their mission was to retrieve a pendant from the deepest part of the underground dungeon, a place no one would dare enter. Not long after, in the dungeon, Virin struck the golem from behind. Her attack hit its core perfectly, and the golem collapsed with a heavy thud, nearly crushing Aizen. As dust filled the air, Aizen coughed and checked if Virin was okay. Virin ran to him and hugged him tightly, calling him reckless. Aizen felt guilty, but more importantly, he had witnessed Virin's true strength. However, Virin was not pleased. She scolded him to be more careful and cried out of relief that he was safe. Aizen thanked her and pointed out that this time she had acted on her own will. He assured her that she could change because she was no coward. As he patted her head and thanked her again, Viren became overwhelmed with emotion. Tears streamed down her face and she began sobbing loudly. Confused, Aizen asked what was wrong. Through her tears, Viren admitted that no one had ever treated her so kindly before. She swore to do her best for Aizen's sake so that she could live with pride. She promised to keep pushing forward. If someone wants to be accepted, they must first accept themselves. At that moment, it seemed Viren had finally taken her first step forward. A moment later, someone appeared from around the corner. It was Salvio, looking bruised and injured. Viren was shocked, so Aizen stepped in for her. He asked Salvio where the rest of his team was. Salvio scoffed at the question and told him he was the only one left. A few hours earlier, Salvio had been cursing out loud, frustrated. He remembered Aizen's words about Viren helping the team avoid traps and wishing them luck. To him, Aizen seemed cruel, as if he had mocked them. But now, instead of Viren, the team had a scout with better stats, so everything should have been much easier. Salvio then turned to the new scout and asked which way they should go. The scout suggested taking the left path since there were fewer monster tracks, and it was a straight route. He believed there wouldn't be many traps. Still, he warned everyone to stay alert and asked them to watch his back just in case. Salvio ignored the warning and confidently walked ahead on his own. The scout tried to stop him, but it was too late. Salvio triggered a trap and an arrow shot out, hitting him in the right shoulder. He screamed in pain as the others rushed over, pulling out the arrow and giving him first aid. Angry, Salvio grabbed the scout by the neck and slammed him against the wall. He shouted that the scout had said there wouldn't be any traps. The scout denied ever saying that. Frustrated, he reminded Salvio that danger was always present on every path and demanded to know if their previous scout had ever warned them about that. Salvio was angry, but when he tried to use Virini's name as an excuse, he hesitated. He realized he had always left the scouting job to her. If she had died because of a trap, he wouldn't have cared since they could always hire someone new. However, he suddenly remembered that he had never been caught in a trap when Viren was leading the way. But the moment he took charge, a simple trap got him. Before he could process everything, monsters appeared on the path ahead. The scout quickly warned that the red kobolds must have smelled the blood and told everyone to prepare for a counterattack. One of the female warriors, confused by his words, asked what he meant. Before she could get an answer, a monster attacked and killed her. The scout couldn't believe he had joined such a terrible party. One by one, the team members were slaughtered as they screamed for Salvio's help. But he just stood there, frozen in fear, unable to do anything. At that moment, he realized he had made a huge mistake by expelling Viren from the party. Salvio knelt and begged Viren to return to the team. He admitted that kicking her out was a mistake and promised to make her the second in command. He claimed she had a great power she didn't yet understand and insisted that he was the only one who could help her unlock it. He even offered money, fame, and anything else she wanted. Viren looked at Salvio with disgust, shocking him. She firmly stated that she didn't care about money or fame. She knew Salvio only saw her as numbers and power. In contrast, Aizen valued her as a person. He listened to her and understood her. Without hesitation, she declared that she would stay with Aizen. Salvio was left speechless. At that moment, a group of adventurers rushed in after hearing a scream. Aizen quickly explained that Salvio had been attacked by a monster and asked them to take him to the surface. One of the adventurers agreed, saying they were already heading back and called for their team's medic. As Salvio lay there helpless, Aizen remarked that he was unfortunate, but this was a result of his own actions. Viren then urged Aizen to keep moving forward. The two continued deeper into the dungeon. However, Viren noticed something strange. There were no monsters anywhere. She expected to see at least a few roaming around. Then Aizen leaned in and whispered something to her. She nodded and said she would give it a try. Viren focused, and at the same time, Aizen used his appraisal eyes on her. She had a skill called Super Sixth Sense, which allowed her to detect traps, monsters, and even their weaknesses. It could also react to non-living objects and things that weren't monsters. If that was true, then they might be able to find something hidden. Suddenly, Viren sensed an item buried under a pile of rubble. She picked it up and Aizen was shocked. It actually worked just as he expected. He then recalled their request. A former adventurer had asked them to find a pendant he lost long ago during a dungeon attack, where he had also lost his friends. The pendant had the party name Daedalus engraved on it, along with the names of all the members symbolizing their eternal bond. Viren smiled as she looked at it. It was proof that adventurers had shared journeys together. Aizen was also moved, realizing that there were still people who truly valued their companions. At that moment, he made a decision. He would name his guild the Outcast Guild. He wanted it to be a place where those who didn't belong anywhere else could gather and use their full strength. Seeing Aizen's determination, Viren decided to fully support him, even if it was just a dream for now. As the first member of the Outcast Guild, she swore to stand by him and help in any way she could. In her heart, she promised to always stay by his side. Later, at a tavern, Aizen and Viren celebrated the success of their first job together. Aizen remembered how shocked Kagurina and Harrier were when they saw the pendant from the request. They couldn't believe it. He told Kagurina to have more faith in her classmate, but she warned him not to get carried away and admitted she was worried. Aizen called her kind for worrying about him. Embarrassed, Kagurina called him a weirdo and told him to go die in a dungeon. When it came to the reward, Aizen suggested that Viren take 80% of it. She refused, saying it was too much. But Aizen reminded her that they only made it through the dungeon and found the pendant because of her. He even joked that if she kept refusing, he would give her 90% instead. Worried, Viren questioned what kind of threat that was. Aizen could tell that Viren didn't care much about money, but he believed that wasn't a good thing. An adventurer's hard work and achievements should be properly rewarded. Viren understood but asked if she could spend the money however she wanted. Aizen agreed. Without hesitation, she told him to use her share to help fund the guild he wanted to start. This time she threatened him. If he refused, she would transfer all the money to his account herself. She also pointed out that if a guildmaster made a girl pay for everything, it would hurt his reputation. Aizen didn't want people looking at him with cold eyes, so he had no choice but to accept. He couldn't help but laugh. He realized that Viren had her own way of being clever. After that, Viren became more confident in her hidden skill, and her performance improved greatly. They started taking on more internal commissions from Kagurina. Even when the task was difficult, they finished in less than half a day because of Viren's abilities. If they had to defeat an A-ranked monster, they simply struck its weak point and took it down in one hit. Viren was completing quests faster than some lower-ranked S-class adventurers. Seeing how well she performed, Aizen began to wonder if he was even needed. To be honest, Viren could clear a dungeon without him. Thanks to their progress, they finally saved enough money for their guild's expenses. Aizen then suggested going to VM City, where the Guild Alliance headquarters was located, to officially apply for their outcast guild. Viren happily celebrated the decision. Meanwhile, in VM City, at the Guild Alliance headquarters, a meeting was taking place. A woman greeted the others in a playful manner. A rough-looking man complained upon seeing her, while another man wearing a bandana asked them to stop arguing. The representative then started the meeting to discuss the future of their guilds for the next half period. The representative was Galaic Farnese, a leader of the Adventurer Guild Alliance. The Alliance was an organization that brought together many adventurers and guilds. To become an adventurer, a person had to join a guild, and that guild had to be part of the Alliance. Among all the guilds, 3 major ones stood out and one representative managed them. These 4 individuals were known as the 4 Great Stars, and they had the authority to shape the future of all adventurers. They were considered the most powerful guild leaders of all. Galaic stated that they had 2 important matters to discuss. The first was about a creature living in the cave labyrinth of Harana City, the Aqua Hydra. He explained that even S-ranked parties struggled to handle this monster despite it appearing in a low-level dungeon. Many C and D-ranked parties had already suffered casualties. He urged them to take immediate action. A rough-looking man interrupted, calling the discussion pointless. He suggested offering a 1000 gold reward and issuing an emergency subjugation request. He believed that if they put the quest on the board, adventurers would take it quickly. Raido Kagura, a member of the Avalon Guild and Kagurina's father, disagreed. He argued that this approach would only lead to unnecessary losses since even new S or A-ranked adventurers couldn't handle an Aqua Hydra. Volk Leopold of the Hecaton Cherry Guild slammed his fist on the table, insisting that the world followed the rule of survival of the fittest. He claimed that if adventurers failed, it was their own fault. A woman then raised her hand to get their attention. She was Melis Ilushka from the Aryanrod Guild. She pointed out that events like this could shake things up. She believed that the quest could give an adventurer party a chance to make a name for themselves, which she considered a good opportunity. Raido turned to Galaic and asked for his decision. Galaic suggested following Volk's plan, saying it would help the entire guild. However, he warned that they shouldn't accept just anyone. Only adventurers approved by their guildmasters should be allowed to join. The next topic was about the status scouter and the expulsion race that started because of it. Volk said the item was useful since weak adventurers with low stats were unnecessary. Galaic agreed that seeking strong allies was not wrong. In the past, teams only disbanded due to disagreements or contract limits. However, he believed the expulsion race was a problem. He pointed out that the actions of S-ranked adventurers had spread everywhere, even leading to fights. He warned that the Alliance would not tolerate further damage to public order and safety. Raido mentioned that poor management was also becoming a problem because too many people were joining and leaving teams. He learned this from his daughter. Melis added that some teams that had removed their members and recruited stronger adventurers actually became weaker. Galaic argued that growth and success couldn't be measured by numbers alone. He believed those who only cared about profit would eventually fail. Volk became angry and asked if Galaic was saying that teamwork and kindness were necessary. He called Galaic a disappointment and told him to retire, suggesting that he should take over instead. He claimed that by removing all weak members, he could make the guild stronger than ever. Galaic glared at him and warned him not to act overconfident. The tension in the meeting room grew, and everyone could feel it, including Volk. He was surprised that Galaic could still give such an intense look. Volk stood up and walked away. He said their conversation was over and that he didn't care how they controlled the trend. He claimed he would stay out of their way, at least as long as they didn't lose their ambition. Melis sighed and called Volk childish. Then she turned to Galaic and asked him to do something about the expulsion race since she didn't like it either. She was worried that one of her favorites might end up getting expelled. Galaic reminded her that she was old enough to handle things herself. He told her he would appreciate it if she focused on guiding the younger ones. Melis giggled as she stood up from her seat. Before leaving, she asked him to take her out to dinner sometime and waved goodbye. Galaic couldn't believe that the Lion King and the Immortal Witch hadn't changed at all. Raido then pointed out that Galaic had provoked Volk too much. He asked what would happen if an internal conflict started. Galaic laughed and said he would leave it to the younger generation to handle it. Rando sighed and asked him to give him a break. Rando shared some good news and reached into his pocket. He tossed something to Galaic. The old man caught it and checked what it was. He was shocked to see the pendant he never thought he would find again. Rando remembered that Galaic had been retired for 40 years, and mentioned that he could have sent a search team earlier. Galaic explained that it was a personal request, and he didn't want to use his authority for it. He had already considered giving up since no one was taking the request. As he read the words engraved on the pendant, memories of his old team, Daedalus, came rushing back. Holding the pendant tightly, he welcomed back his long-lost friends. Wiping his tears, Galaic asked if Rando's adventurer party had found the pendant. Rando told him that it was actually his daughter's schoolmate who had taken on the request. He called the boy interesting and mentioned that he was in the process of forming his own guild. Galaic then asked for the boy's name. Aizen had just faced one of the biggest problems in his life and didn't know how to tell Varine about it. He couldn't believe he had failed the application. About 20 minutes earlier, a staff member had called him ridiculous and told him to leave. Confused, Aizen asked why, since he thought submitting an application was enough. The staff member explained that it depended on the guildmaster's personality. He claimed that someone like Aizen couldn't even handle a group of low-level recruits. He didn't want to deal with reckless people who would only lead their guild to ruin. Aizen argued that his guild was getting results and asked if there was any way to fix the situation. The staff member then suggested hunting down some wanted bandits. He said that if Aizen could capture Grand Zeft, he would at least consider listening to him. Aizen wanted to ask more about Grand Zeft, but the staff member dismissed him and even threatened to call security. Deep in thought, Aizen walked away. He didn't want to ruin Virine's good mood with the bad news. He imagined her protesting, which could even lead to her getting arrested. He wasn't sure what to do. Just then he bumped into someone and fell to the ground. He quickly apologized and asked if the person was okay. As he reached out a hand to help, the old man apologized as well. It turned out to be Galaic, who thanked Aizen. By the way, Varine was waiting for Aizen alone outside the Alliance's HQ. Aizen apologized again for bumping into Galaic and asked if he was hurt. Galaic assumed Aizen wasn't an adventurer, which confused him. The old man joked that adventurers these days usually didn't apologize when bumping into someone. However, Aizen could tell that Galaic was also an adventurer. Even though he looked thin, he had a strong build and a confident smile. Galaic then guessed that Aizen had come for a guild-related application. Aizen scratched his head and admitted that he did, but the receptionist had called him crazy and turned him away. He explained that he wanted to start a guild called the Outcast Guild, which would accept those who didn't belong anywhere else. Galaic was surprised. He stared at Aizen and asked for his name. Confused, Aizen introduced himself fully. At that moment, Galaic realized that Aizen was the boy who had found his pendant. He called their meeting fate and asked if the receptionist had said anything else. Aizen explained that she had told him to capture Grand Zeft of the Thieves Guild. Since Aizen was from the countryside and didn't know much about them, he asked Galaic for information. Galaic explained that Grand Zeft was a bandit group that had been getting a lot of attention recently. They used to be low-level adventurers, not much better than common thugs. However, after a man named Hugo took over as their leader, they became one of the most powerful groups in the underworld. Now they were involved in theft, trafficking, kidnapping, and even murder, especially the abduction of important people for ransom. Aizen asked why the guild headquarters hadn't taken action. He pointed out that if adventurers committed crimes, it would damage the reputation of the Adventurers Guilds Alliance. Galaic assured him that the headquarters was trying, but Grand Zeft was like mist. They were impossible to catch. Unlike fighting monsters in dungeons, tracking down criminals was much harder. Aizen understood that they had no way of capturing them. Galaic explained that one of his friends had been a victim of Grand Zeft. The attacker had injured him with a blade and stolen his belongings. He regretted that his body was no longer fit to chase criminals. Aizen noticed Galaic trembling as he gripped his walking stick. If his own friends or colleagues suffered the same way, he knew he wouldn't forgive the attacker either. If no one stopped Grand Zeft, the harm would only spread. At this rate, Aizen wouldn't even be able to apply to the guild. Determined, Aizen decided to track down Grand Zeft. Even if he couldn't avenge the old man's friend, he could at least find a clue. However, he worried that the receptionist might not accept his offer. Galaic then joked about whether lowlifes could even be inside the headquarters, saying the Alliance representative would be furious if they were. Hearing that, Aizen admitted he would feel relieved if the representative got involved. Aizen had always admired the representative because he was the strongest among millions of adventurers. He was a mysterious figure, and Aizen never imagined he would meet him in person. He wondered what kind of person the representative really was, but at that moment he was already talking to him. Galaic said he enjoyed their conversation but needed to leave. Before walking away, he told Aizen that he looked forward to his progress in tracking down Grand Zeft. Aizen wasn't sure what the old man expected since his unofficial guild only had 2 members, but Galaic believed Aizen was lucky and had a good feeling about him. He told Aizen to treat the request as a test and do his best. As he left, he called Aizen a young guildmaster and hoped they would meet again. Hearing those words made Aizen happy. The old man had a dignified presence and seemed like a good person. Since he wore the headquarters uniform, Aizen wondered if he held an important position. Now that he thought about it, he never asked for his name, but somehow, he felt they would cross paths again. Afterward, Aizen reunited with Vereen. She immediately congratulated him on the application. Her bright and cheerful expression made Aizen hesitate. He had something difficult to tell her, but he knew he had to say it. At the market, Aizen and Vereen walked around looking at the different stalls. Vereen saw various products and daily necessities. Earlier, Aizen had told her about the application, and as expected, she protested. For now, they decided to visit the town market for a change of pace and to gather information. Vereen kept glancing at the shops, curious to explore them. Aizen smiled as he watched her, and she quickly noticed. She pouted and asked if he thought she was acting childish. Aizen denied it, but Vereen didn't believe him. She reminded him of his own words about helping others grow as part of his duty as a guildmaster. She said she wanted to see him smile too and insisted that she wasn't a child anymore. Blushing slightly, she hesitated before saying that she was a woman now. However, Aizen, not understanding what she meant, asked what she was talking about. Embarrassed, Vereen quickly said she just wanted him to recognize her as a proper guild member. She also wanted him to enjoy things for himself. Aizen apologized for troubling her and thanked her for being a good companion. Flustered, Vereen decided to leave the conversation as it was. Aizen still had no idea what she truly meant. They continued browsing the shops, enjoying the sights. Vereen bought a colorful crepe as a snack while Aizen commented on how good the kebabs smelled. He asked if Vereen wanted a bite. Shocked, she froze for a moment. Aizen assumed she was uncomfortable with the idea at her age and thought he had done something careless. But instead of rejecting the offer, Vereen surprised him by asking if she could have some. Aizen told her not to force herself, but with a red face, she insisted that she didn't mind and even wanted him to feed her. Aizen held out the kebab and Vereen took a small bite. She was surprised by how delicious it was. Curious, Aizen took a bite himself and was amazed by the explosion of flavors. He decided that when he returned to Viam, he would definitely eat it again. At that moment, Vereen held out her crepe and asked Aizen to take a bite. He told her it wasn't necessary, but she insisted, saying it wouldn't be fair if he didn't. In the end, Aizen accepted and tasted the dessert. It was sweet and enjoyable even though it wasn't a fancy treat. He thanked Vereen, and she simply told him not to worry. What Aizen didn't know was that Vereen had a small secret of her own. After he took a bite, she ate from the same spot where he had. She also enjoyed the crepe's delicious taste. When Aizen noticed how happy she looked, he made a comment about it. Surprised, Vereen blushed and couldn't find the words to respond. For now, Aizen decided to gather information about Grand Zeft. He planned to visit the nearby Adventurers Guild and told Vereen they would head out after finishing their food. He wanted to check the city's guilds just in case he learned something useful. As soon as they stepped inside one, they walked into a tense situation. A girl with long animal ears shouted that she wouldn't accept such treatment. Aizen found it strange to see a beastman working as an adventurer. He had heard that some places allowed it, but it still wasn't common. The beastman girl accused her teammates of being unfair, and claimed the guild wouldn't tolerate their actions. However, her leader stated that Volk of Hecatonchere, the group they belonged to, had already approved their decision. He coldly declared that they didn't need weaklings. At that moment, Aizen realized what was happening. The leader then announced that the Beastman girl, Micah, was now expelled from his S-ranked party, Aegis. The scene felt familiar, almost like deja vu. The leader felt proud of his announcement, but Micah couldn't believe what she had just heard. She asked if she had ever caused trouble for the party. The onlookers whispered among themselves, expecting another banishment. Aegis was the top-ranked party of the Hecatomb Guild, and had recently defeated a dragon. Its leader, Clay, was known as the Dragon Slayer, and was highly favored by Quadmaster Volk Leopold. If Volk approved a banishment, the exiled member would never be able to join another party. Anyone who tried to resist would be permanently banned by the Guild Alliance. But Micah refused to accept her banishment and told the onlookers to be quiet. Just then, a female magician stepped forward. She introduced herself as Hilda the Necromancer, Aegis's new magician. Clay admired her necromancy and called it beautiful. Micah turned to Silas, the team's tank, hoping to discuss the matter further. Silas reminded her that it had been her job to protect the party from magic attacks, yet he had been the one neutralizing them instead. Micah wanted to argue, but in the end, she held her tongue. Vern grabbed Aizen's sleeve. He saw her trembling, probably remembering when she was banished from her previous party. But this wasn't unusual. Similar things were happening in adventurers' guilds everywhere. Even so, he had already made his decision when he saved Vern. He placed his hand on hers to reassure her. He had promised himself that he would put an end to the expulsion rush and create a place where people's abilities were valued beyond just stats and numbers. Aizen tried to step in, but Micah snapped at him like an angry cat. He was startled and left speechless for a moment. Keeping his composure, he introduced himself as the guildmaster of the Outcasts Guild. He explained that he wanted to recruit Micah as a member. Micah was completely shocked by his words. Clay, on the other hand, said he had never heard of such a guild. Aizen simply responded that it was a newly formed one. In reality, he couldn't admit that his application had been rejected, and that his guild wasn't officially recognized yet. Aizen asked the group when Silas and Micah had joined the party. Silas claimed he had been part of the team since the beginning, while Micah had joined 2 years ago when the party was still ranked B. Aizen then questioned whether they had ever considered that their rise to S rank was due to Micah's contributions. Clay confidently stated that their skills alone had earned them the rank and recognition from Volk. He insisted that Micah should understand her own position now, since she would only slow them down in the future. He also pointed out that she had too little mana for an S-ranked adventurer. Silas agreed, saying it would be best to remove her before something bad happened. He proudly declared that the team only needed him, a tank who could neutralize all kinds of attacks, and Clay, the Dragon Slayer. On top of that, they had Hilda, whom he considered a good teammate. Aizen doubted Silas's claim that he could neutralize all attacks, even with high defense. He decided to use his appraisal eyes, something he hadn't done in a while. He examined everyone, starting with Silas. His eyes confirmed that Silas had a powerful hidden skill called Iron Wall. This skill reduced physical damage by 50%. Additionally, if Silas's defense was higher than an opponent's attack power, the attack would only deal 1 damage. Aizen acknowledged that this was a valuable skill for a tank, as reducing minor attacks to almost nothing was a major advantage. Since their party was named Aegis, it made sense that Silas was at its core. However, something didn't add up. There were 3 types of attacks: physical, magic, and status ailments. Most tanks struggled against magic and status effects, which was why magicians played a key role in countering them. Monsters had various attack types, so tanks focused on blocking physical damage, while magicians handled magical and status-based threats. Earlier, Silas had claimed he could block magic himself, but he lacked a skill for that. Aizen realized that the real reason magic attacks were being neutralized wasn't Silas, it was someone else. When he focused on Micah, he discovered her hidden skill, Miko Blessing. This ability nullified physical attacks against a single target 3 times per battle. However, using it came at the cost of greatly reducing her maximum mana during the fight. More importantly, it could also nullify magic and status effects on the target an unlimited number of times. Aizen was stunned. Micah's hidden skill was something overpowered and perfectly covered Silas's weakness. Even though using it reduced the number of attacks because of lower mana, it still made the front line much stronger. Clay's comment about Micah's low mana confirmed how her skill worked. Aizen also noticed that Silas misunderstood the situation. Micah then told Silas to listen. She said that without her power he would be in trouble. Silas, however, told her to stop trying to reason out. From the way Micah spoke, Aizen realized something. He asked if she even knew about her own skill. Micah, caught off guard, asked what he meant. Aizen wondered why she never reported it. If she had, she wouldn't be in this situation and others would see how useful she was. Hilda stepped in and told the group to leave since they had work to do. At that moment, Clay remembered Aizen mentioning the Outcast Guild. He dismissed it, saying a weak guild would suit weak people, and even told Aizen he could take Micah if he wanted. Micah tightened her grip on her staff, unable to believe what she had just heard. Aizen responded, saying he wasn't happy for himself but for Micah, who was now free from a terrible party leader and guildmaster. Clay stopped and demanded to know what he meant. Aizen then called Clay and Volk scumbags for abandoning their own companions, despite having traveled together all the way to S-Class. Angered, Clay swung his sword at Aizen's neck, but Viren blocked the attack in an instant, deflecting his blade with ease. The room fell silent in shock. Viren declared that she wouldn't let anyone harm Aizen, and that she wouldn't forgive those who mistreated outcasts. She made it clear that she despised people like Clay. Clay was furious, but before he could act, Silas reminded him that drawing a sword inside the Adventurers Guild was strictly forbidden. Even so, Clay refused to let them insult Volk. Just then, Hilda clung to his back and whispered that she was scared. For some reason, her words calmed him down. Taking a deep breath, he apologized, admitting that he had lost his temper. Aizen suspected Hilda's words had some sort of magical effect since she was a necromancer. At first, he thought she might be the type to disrupt parties, but she seemed much calmer than Clay, which made her a rather unsettling presence in his eyes. Clay turned away and warned them not to show their faces to him again. He couldn't promise he wouldn't draw his sword next time. Then he walked off, leaving the tense atmosphere behind. The hall finally grew silent after Aegis left. Aizen sighed and commented on Clay's boldness for drawing his sword inside the guild. Micah, worried about what could have happened to him, scolded him. Viren also asked Aizen to at least give her a signal next time. Aizen thanked Viren for her help but admitted that she had spoken without thinking. At that moment, he had only felt bad for Micah. Micah was surprised and called Aizen strange, but she could tell he was a good person. Viren eagerly agreed and praised Aizen almost like a fan. She then introduced the Outcast Guild, explaining that it welcomed adventurers who had been exiled for their low stats, and those who had yet to realize their true potential. She claimed that everyone could prove their worth in the Outcast Guild. Micah, feeling pressured, complained about how close Viren was being. Viren then invited her to support Aizen together for the rest of their lives, which Micah found overwhelming. Aizen quickly reminded them that he had only spoken in the heat of the moment. Viren suddenly realized what he meant, and Micah gave them both a doubtful look. Scratching his head, Aizen admitted that they were not an official guild yet, and that his application had only just been submitted. Micah, now angry, demanded to know if she had just been recruited into a guild that didn't even exist. Aizen insisted he wasn't trying to deceive her but had his own reasons. Furious, Micah grabbed him by the collar and called him a swindler, accusing him of taking advantage of someone else's weakness. Aizen asked her to calm down and promised to take responsibility as the guild master. Micah, realizing her adventurer career might be over, started crying. Aizen tried to reassure her, asking her to listen first, while Viren also helped to calm her down. Micah soon found out that the Outcast Guild's application had been denied, but there was still hope. If they caught the Grand Zeft Thieves Guild that had been causing trouble lately, they might get a reward. Aizen explained that was why they needed help from people who were already active in the city. Micah agreed to help. She felt like she owed them something because they had protected her from Clay and her old teammates. Still, she asked for some time to think about joining their guild. Aizen told her that the choice was completely up to her. He even said that his guild was small and not very strong. Micah quickly said that wasn't what she meant. Then Aizen got serious. He asked if it was really true that she got kicked out of Aegis just because her stats were low. Micah felt hurt by the question and admitted that her mana was lower than an S-ranked adventurer's. That's what Clay had told her too. Aizen thought there had to be more to the story. He brought up her skill called Miko's Blessing, and Micah suddenly raised her voice. She told him to shut up and ordered everyone to leave the room. Later, in the alleyway, Micah asked him the same question again. She wanted to know how Aizen knew about her skill when she had never told anyone. Aizen calmly showed his eyes and explained that he had a skill called Appraisal. It let him see special traits and hidden skills in others. Micah was shocked when she heard the words hidden skills. Aizen apologized for using his skill without asking. He said he understood it was a secret, one she couldn't even tell her powerful former teammates. He figured there had to be a reason why she kept it hidden. Micah flinched when she heard that. At that moment, Viren told Micah not to worry. She said that Aizen was someone who kept secrets. She also shyly added that every girl had at least one secret of her own. When Aizen saw her blush, he felt confused. Micah, on the other hand, thought there was something strange about what Viren said. Still, she already believed that Aizen was a kind person who didn't force others to join the guild by using their secrets against them. For now, she decided to trust him. Aizen said that of course he wouldn't do something like that, because his dream was to become a white guild master. Micah agreed with him and said that it was a deal. Since everything was settled, she suggested they get moving. Viren then asked where they were going. Micah told her they were heading to an information broker. In the world of adventurers, there was a connection between party members, guild receptionists, and informants. The more well-known a party was, the more people they were connected to. These connections were very useful, not just for gaining power in the guild, but also for planning dungeon attacks. Information was a powerful tool. The only contact Aizen had was Kagarina, but this time they met a rough-looking man, and Aizen paid him for the information. The informant shared everything he knew about Grand Zeft. He said that their leader Hugo was very powerful. The group had about 10 members, but most of them were low-ranked adventurers. They weren't even real thieves. Micah then asked why they had such a bad reputation even though they were just amateurs. The informant explained that it was mostly Hugo who did everything. The others only helped by moving the stolen goods. He also said that Hugo had a strange ability. People said he could disappear anytime he wanted. Aizen and Virin were shocked to hear that. The informant added that Hugo used to be a bandit and didn't care about big goals like fighting monsters. Aizen believed that Hugo probably had a hidden skill that made his body invisible. That was likely the reason why Grand Zeft could do whatever they wanted without being stopped. For people who didn't know about hidden skills, this was hard to understand. Virin and Micah were good examples of people who knew about their hidden skills and learned how to control them. But Hugo used his skill in a harmful way, which was the complete opposite. Aizen thought they had to do something to stop him. After meeting with the informant, Micah said she had a feeling that the leader had a powerful ability. She asked what they could do next. Then she suggested they split up for now. She planned to use her contacts while she told the others to ask around the town or at the Adventurers Guild. She wanted them to investigate carefully. The sky was already getting dark, and Virin felt upset that they didn't find anything. It seemed like her super sixth sense couldn't help her find people either. Aizen could tell she was trying very hard. Just then, Virin heard a soft whining sound nearby. In a small alley, she found a puppy trapped in a metal jaw trap. She quickly helped the puppy get out and wrapped its hurt leg with bandages. The puppy started licking her face and she said it tickled. Aizen said the puppy was showing thanks, but he also started to wonder why a trap was placed there, almost like someone did it on purpose. At that moment, some thugs came up to them. They had heard that Aizen and Virin were asking questions about their group, the Grand Zeft. Since the two were getting in the way, the thugs were told to kill everyone, except for the Beastman girl. Aizen asked if they meant Micah, but the thugs said it didn't matter because they were going to die anyway. Two of the thugs rushed to attack while their leader, who stayed in the back, was already thinking about what he would do with Virin later. But right then, one of the thugs flew past the leader and hit the ground. Virin told them not to worry. She hadn't even drawn her sword yet. Then she easily knocked out the second thug. She couldn't forgive them for hurting a small puppy just to trap them, and for pointing their weapons at Aizen, who was special to her. She warned them to get ready because she was going to hurt them badly. More thugs showed up, but none of them could stop Virin. In the end, she was the only one left standing, surrounded by the knocked-out thugs. Aizen already knew how strong Virin was. Even though she had been kicked out of her party, she used to be an A-ranked adventurer. Adventurers ranked C or D had no chance against her. Just then, the leader of the thugs went after Aizen instead. But to everyone's surprise, Aizen dodged the attack and punched the thug in the face. He explained that he was used to getting into fights with people who made fun of him. He might not have been strong enough to fight monsters, but that didn't mean he was weak. Still, Aizen said he didn't like fighting because it made his hand hurt, and he didn't think he was that strong anyway. Virin asked if he was okay. Aizen said he was and thanked her for helping. Then he walked up to the thug he had just punched. The thug quickly gave up and promised to tell them everything he knew. Aizen asked where Grand Zeft's hideout was and where they could find Hugo. The thug stuttered and said he didn't know. Virin warned him to give a proper answer, then pressed her thumb on his forehead. The thug screamed in pain. Even Aizen, who was just watching, could tell it hurt. He guessed that Virin had hit a weak spot only she could see. The thug shouted that he really didn't know where Hugo was. Hugo only allowed his most trusted people to enter the hideout. Regular underlings like him weren't told anything. Aizen figured Hugo was the type to be very careful. Then Aizen asked about Micah. The thug said he was also from the Far East, and over there Micah was part of the famous Shirokani clan. He said she was a royal family member and one of the missing Mikos. He was shocked when he saw her working as an adventurer so far from home. Until recently, no one dared to go near her because she was part of Aegis. But now that she had been kicked out, Hugo planned to kidnap her and ask for ransom from her royal family. Aizen realized that these people had been targeting Micah from the beginning. The thug then suggested they work together and promised they could make lots of money. But Aizen and Virin just glared at him and told him to be quiet. Then they knocked him out. Since Micah was alone, they decided to hurry and catch up to her. Meanwhile, Micah was in pain. Someone invisible was attacking her. The attacker called her a little kid who smelled like money and warned that it was dangerous to walk alone. She might get attacked by some evil thief. Then a creepy half-transparent man appeared in front of her. Soon after, Aizen and Virin found a familiar staff lying in an alley. They knew right away it belonged to Micah. Aizen realized that while he and Virin were being attacked by the underlings, Hugo must have taken his main group and gone after Micah. The situation was bad. Hugo had a hidden power. He could turn invisible. Once he kidnapped someone, it was very hard to find him again. Virin held the puppy tighter, feeling worried about Micah. Aizen noticed the puppy whimpering and suddenly got an idea. He thought someone he knew might be able to help. At that moment, a girl saw them from across the street. It was Kagarina with Harrier sitting on her shoulder. She said it was just a coincidence that she saw them. She explained that she was on her way to give a document to the Alliance and didn't expect to run into them. Without wasting time, Aizen grabbed her arm. He said he needed her help. He told her he needed her power. Kagarina misunderstood what he meant and started blushing. Meanwhile, Micah woke up, but she was chained by all 4 limbs and couldn't move at all. A man laughed and asked if she was finally awake, saying she was now in the Grand Zeph's hideout. He introduced himself as the most wanted man in the city, Hugo, also known as the Invisible Hugo. Behind him stood 3 other men. Micah felt angry. She wanted to shout at him, but she knew she was in trouble. 4 enemies were in front of her, and without her staff, her magic might not work as well. She tried to cast a spell using only her finger, but Hugo stopped her. He told her it wasn't their first time kidnapping a magician. He pointed to the handcuffs on her wrists, saying they had special seals that stopped magic. Micah realized she couldn't do anything, so she asked what they planned to do with her. She reminded them that she was part of the S-ranked party, Aegis, and that Clay the Dragon Slayer wouldn't stay quiet about her disappearance. Hugo only laughed. He said he already knew she had been kicked out of Aegis. He also knew that her current group only had a weak guy and a young girl. He claimed those 2 were probably... Micah didn't let him finish. She quickly asked what they did to her companions. Hugo just laughed again. He said they had been watching her for a long time. They knew she came from the Shirokane clan, a royal family from the Far East. Micah was shocked. She nervously asked if they were mistaken for thinking she was royalty. Hugo said it would make sense if she were a dangerous royal. Then he pulled out a knife and called her pushy and annoying. Micah shouted that threats wouldn't work on her and they shouldn't underestimate her. But Hugo smirked and told her not to be scared because he wouldn't stop even if she screamed. He pointed the knife at her, and Micah couldn't help but shut her eyes. At that moment, angry dogs rushed into the hideout. Hugo's men were confused and ended up getting attacked and killed by the dogs. Hugo asked what was going on and blamed Micah for it. Micah explained that she didn't have the power to control dogs. Then a girl stepped forward and explained that the dogs weren't being controlled, they were helping them on their own. Micah was happy to see the group safe. Viren said it was expected. She explained that the dogs were helping because Kagarina had asked them to, using her skill called Zooglot. She was proud that Kagarina had made so many animal friends. The puppy barked as if to agree. Viren also shared that Kagarina was now bringing help from the Alliance, and the back door was guarded by more dogs and Kagarina's hawk, Harrier. Aizen finally spoke, telling Hugo, the leader of the Grand Zeft Guild, that his crimes were over. Hugo said nothing. He could see his men were no help anymore. He couldn't believe they were all defeated. Still, Hugo confidently asked if they really thought they had him trapped. Then he turned invisible. Micah shouted that Hugo's power was invisibility. Hugo mocked them, saying it must be scary not knowing where he was. He said he would kill them and escape. But Aizen said it was too late. He had already figured out Hugo's hidden skill. He held the puppy in his arms and said that Viren was more than enough to stop Hugo. Hugo then jumped at Viren with a knife. He believed every person had a blind spot above their head, and now that he was invisible, she wouldn't be able to see him. Viren had her eyes closed the whole time, but she still knew where Hugo was. She quickly pushed her sword forward, hitting him and slamming him into the wall. Hugo's invisibility started to fade as he now had a wound in his stomach. After she pulled her sword out, Hugo fell to the ground. Viren said her super sixth sense helped her find his weak spot, even if she couldn't see him. Hugo's hidden skill was called camouflage. It let him bend light to make himself invisible, but it didn't hide his sound, smell, or presence, and he could still be hurt. Viren also took the keys from Hugo's pocket. As always, Aizen thought her skill was really helpful. Then Micah asked why they saved her, even though she didn't want to join them. Aizen reminded her that she had already agreed to help them look for Grand Zeft. Viren said that even if they couldn't be allies, they could still be friends. Micah didn't know what to say. Her eyes filled with tears because she felt moved. As they unlocked her chains, Micah started to wonder if their guild was the place where she truly belonged. Soon after, the same guild staff from earlier bowed in front of Aizen and apologized. With a nervous voice, he congratulated Aizen on his situation with Grand Zeft and said his guild application had been approved. He also mentioned that the admission fee had been waived. He apologized again for the trouble he had caused. Aizen asked why the man was acting so strangely. The staff member begged Aizen to accept his apology, saying he had already made the representative very angry. If things kept going like this, he could lose his job, get a pay cut, or be sent to another place. He quickly ran away, asking for forgiveness as he left. Aizen and the girls were left in shock for a moment. Then Viren said they were now officially recognized as the Outcast Guild. Kagarina congratulated them, saying they finally had a starting point and told them to do their best. She also said that aside from the reward money, they would receive a thank you letter later on. Aizen felt relieved that everything had been settled and thanked Kagarina for her help. Viren was happy that everyone was safe. Kagarina reminded Aizen not to forget the dinner he had promised her, saying she would order the most expensive dish. Aizen said he could handle it as long as only she was eating. Kagarina then secretly spoke with Harrier, asking if this meant it was a date. While we didn't hear his reply, it was clear he said yes. After that, Aizen turned to Mika and apologized for getting her involved in something dangerous. Mika said it was her own choice to help them, so they didn't need to feel guilty. She added that it was actually supposed to be the other way around, but she couldn't explain it yet. She went quiet for a moment, then asked Aizen to listen to her story in private. Aizen saw how worried she looked and was surprised. Mika had always been compared to her sister. Many people wished her younger sister would become the priestess of the Shirokane clan instead. These were the whispers of the maids, words Mika never wanted to hear. Whenever she stood in front of others, she felt their cold stares filled with doubt and disappointment. Next to her sister, she felt useless. So she made a choice. She left her clan. She no longer wanted to be part of the Shirokane name. She ran away from the mansion and finally found her freedom. But even after that, the memories and shadows of her past still followed her. In the present, Mika sat down with Aizen for a talk. She admitted she had kept secrets from them, and that was part of the reason behind the kidnapping. She apologized for getting them involved. Aizen asked if she was talking about where she came from. He said the thieves from Grand Zeft had mentioned it. He realized that was probably why she had been targeted. Then he wondered if she knew about her hidden skill all along, and if that was why she had kept her distance from the group in the beginning. Mika didn't say anything. Aizen asked why she tried so hard to hide her past. He said if people knew she was a princess from the Far East, the Adventurer Alliance would protect her. Starting her own party wouldn't be hard either. Mika answered that going any further might cause more problems. In the worst case, she could be hunted for the rest of her life. Aizen reminded her that they were friends now. Even Viren had said so. He told her it was okay to share their burdens with each other. Mika was a bit surprised and called Aizen a soft-hearted weirdo. But Aizen said that if he wanted to be a proper guildmaster, he had to be ready to carry a few secrets. He was prepared for that. Mika paused for a moment before finally saying her full name, Mika Shirokane. She admitted that she was born into the royal family of the Far East, known as the Shirokane clan. Her family came from a long line of shrine maidens. These shrine maidens gave blessings to warriors who protected their land for many generations. This special power was called the Shrine Maiden's Blessing, something Aizen referred to as a hidden skill. Aizen then realized it made sense why Mika knew about her power. She came from a family that had passed down such skills, so she was likely taught about them early in life. He asked if her family kept this power a secret. Mika said yes. She explained that the Shirokane clan kept the Shrine Maiden's blessing to themselves. They didn't allow outsiders to use or even learn about it. The Shrine Maidens were kept locked away, and Mika described those days as hell. She also revealed that she had a younger sister who could give an even stronger blessing than she could. Because of that, Mika started to feel like she didn't belong. There was no place for her in the clan, or anywhere else. She still remembered her sister once asking if Mika was useless. That question stayed with her. It was one of the reasons she decided to run away. Mika had always looked up to adventurers, people who lived freely and traveled wherever they wanted. She wanted to be like them and live that kind of life. Fortunately, she had a lot of time to read, so she learned about magic and how to become an adventurer. Aizen believed that if people found out about Mika's past or her powers, she might be targeted again or even taken away by her family. Mika said that the Shirokane family's influence should have been strong enough to protect her, and that in a powerful S-rank party like Aegis, no one would have dared to hurt her. But she had been removed from the group because she hid her powers. She found the whole situation strange. She thanked Aizen for listening to her story and explained she only told him because she felt responsible for dragging him and his team into her problems. She asked him to forget about making her a member of his guild, thinking it would be better for everyone. Aizen was surprised and stayed quiet for a moment. Then he thanked her for being thoughtful, but said that was exactly why he wanted her to join. Mika was confused and tried to explain again, but Aizen stopped her. He told her that she needed a place where she could feel like she belonged. He said it wasn't just about her hidden powers, it was also about her as a person, about how she cared for others. He said the guild needed someone like her. He told her that she could always come back and held out his hand. Mika was left speechless. From everything she had said, Aizen didn't feel like she really wanted to say no. Her concern for the team made him think she was hiding how she truly felt. Aizen had already decided that he wouldn't give up on reaching out to her. Then, Aizen stood up and said they would be heading back to Daytona soon. He told Mika that if she changed her mind, Kagarina from the Avalon Guild could help her reconnect. Before leaving, he looked back at her and said he hoped they'd meet again. With that, Aizen walked away, feeling that he had said all he needed to. Now, it was up to Mika to choose what to do next. The next evening, inside the Avalon Guild's building, some of the members celebrated the start of the new Outcast Guild. They raised their mugs and cheered. Kagarina didn't mind the celebration, but she complained that her father was there too, and he had even rented the whole building. Righto, her father asked what she was upset about. He reminded her that they had captured the Grand Zeft and safely started a new guild. He said it was only right to celebrate the achievements of the man his daughter liked. Kagarina got annoyed and asked what he meant. She told him not to say such nonsense. Then Raito turned to Aizen and said he was excited to see what Aizen's guild would become. He added that more people believed in Aizen than he probably realized. Aizen looked confused. He wondered if there were others who believed in him besides the ones already there. Viren then spoke up and said she also believed in Aizen. She imagined a future where outcasts weren't hated but were finally free to show their strength, together with the Outcast Guild. Kagarina thought about how Aizen used to be a loner. Now he had managed to win over a kind-hearted girl. Aizen corrected her and said he was just looking for hidden talent. Then, as promised, he told everyone it was his treat and brought out some special food. He told Kagarina to enjoy it. Kagarina felt a little emotional because she had expected a date, but deep down, she figured something like this would happen. Everyone enjoyed the food together. Even the dog from before was there with them. While they ate, Kagarina complained that Aizen hadn't really changed since the old days. She couldn't believe he was now a guild master, but she still called him a real idiot. Aizen said proudly that he deserved credit for always charging ahead with confidence. Kagarina reminded him that his blunt attitude made him unpopular with the teachers, and even got him in trouble with a teacher named Gelman. Aizen agreed and said those were the days. She then asked if Aizen recalled the first time they met. In the past, Kagarina slowly began to understand what animals around her were saying, but she kept telling herself she couldn't hear them. She thought it was impossible and believed no one else would believe her either. Even she had a hard time believing it was real. One day, while she was ignoring a sparrow, Aizen came over and asked why she was pretending not to hear the bird, even though she clearly understood it. Kagarina remembered how Aizen used to ignore people too, even his own friends. Thinking back, she realized she might have been one of the people Aizen had helped. Aizen laughed and said they were even now. He told her that nobody had believed him either, except for Kagarina. Because she trusted him, he was finally able to reach his goal. He thanked her for being a good friend. Kagarina blushed a little and felt happy inside. At that moment, a drunk Viren interrupted them. She shouted that she understood too. She said Aizen had helped her change and that she knew how much Aizen meant to Kagarina. Kagarina quickly denied it and said Aizen didn't matter to her at all. She also told Viren that she didn't understand how she truly felt. Aizen then noticed how drunk Viren was and realized she had been drinking wine, not juice. Raito laughed and told everyone to drink more since he was paying. Kagarina blamed her father for bringing the wine and told Viren to drink some water instead. Then Raito became serious and asked Aizen about his plans for the future. Now that he had started his own guild, he needed to make the Outcast Guild known so that new members would come to him on their own. Aizen agreed but said there were no shortcuts. He planned to find the outcasts one by one and talk to them himself. Right then, Raito suggested that they team up to hunt an aqua hydra. Everyone went silent. Aizen laughed and told Raito to stop joking. Kagarina thought her father was already drunk. Viren said she felt like she would faint just thinking about fighting a monster that even S-ranked teams had trouble with. But Raito looked even more serious, and Aizen realized he wasn't joking. Raito explained that an aqua hydra had moved into a dungeon meant for low-level adventurers. Now C and D-ranked teams were being attacked, and things were getting out of control. He said the Alliance had already made an emergency request to defeat the monster. The reward was 1,000 gold coins, and it would go to whoever completed it first. Raito added that the representative himself asked for help after hearing about Aizen's fight with Grand Zeft and their capture. Aizen was surprised to hear that the representative was involved. Raito also said that Volk and his S-ranked team were getting ready to join the hunt too. He told Aizen this was a rare chance to become well-known. At that moment, Kagarina angrily asked her father if he was trying to get Aizen killed. Her words were too much for Viren. She passed out. Kagarina caught her and gently let her rest on her lap. Just as she expected, it was impossible for them. Aizen agreed and said he was no help in battles. With only Viren on his team, they had no chance of beating an aqua hydra. Someone then asked what would happen if it wasn't just the two of them. Aizen turned to the entrance and saw Micah. She had heard they were going to hunt an aqua hydra and offered to show the strength of someone who used to be part of an S-ranked dragon-slaying team. Aizen asked if she had finally made up her mind. Micah said she trusted his judgment and was now putting everything in his hands. She also said that the Outcast Guild would now be her new home. Aizen smiled. Micah looked around for Viren and saw that she was completely drunk. She couldn't believe that someone so brave the other day had ended up like this. Micah shook her awake and told her they would now work hard together to defeat the aqua hydra. She called Viren her senpai. Hearing this made Viren excited, and she realized that she had just gained a junior on the team. Meanwhile, in the horror dungeon, a man led a group with a smile on his face. He reminded them that this mission was trusted to them by Volk, the man they looked up to. This team was Aegis, Micah's former group. They were now on their way to finish the subjugation mission quickly using their team's strength. Micah's old team, Aegis, had faced their target monster, which was about to attack them with fire breath. Clay told Silas to move forward. Silas stepped up with his shield, confident that he could block the attack. He believed his shield could always stop breath-type magic. But when the monster released its breath attack, it cut through Silas like he wasn't even there. His face showed shock and confusion as his body was sliced apart. The attack didn't just hit him, it also tore through the ground behind him. For a moment, Clay was frozen in confusion. Then, as he watched Silas's body fall, fear took over. He could only scream as he stood face to face with the Aqua Hydra. 2 days later, in the cave dungeon near Harana town, Varin was busy fighting off a monster. She was surprised by how big the crab was. It wasn't just large, it was giant. The monster then tried to attack Micah, who looked like she couldn't defend herself. But surprisingly, she wasn't hurt at all. A magic shield had protected her. Aizen and Varin were shocked. Then Micah used a spell that made the giant crab fall asleep. Varin hugged Micah and praised her. Micah said it tickled and explained that her shield was part of her hidden skill called Priestess Blessing. This skill could block 3 physical attacks during a battle. It also kept blocking magic and harmful effects while it was active. But there was a downside. Her magic power dropped a lot during that time, so she couldn't use strong spells. The 3 uses of the shield would return after she got some rest. Varin thanked her for sharing that. Micah said she didn't want to repeat the mistake she had made with Aegis. It wasn't just that Micah had been kicked out of her old party, Aegis, for hiding the fact that she had the priestess's blessings. That morning, Raido also brought important news before they left. The S-ranked party Aegis, sent by Volk, had failed to defeat the Aqua Hydra. They lost their heavy knight, and that was what caused their defeat. Micah held her staff tightly when she said the Silas's name. Her face showed she felt guilty. Aizen saw her expression after hearing about Aegis's failure. He clenched his fist and promised to do his best on this mission. But if things got too dangerous, he would pull his team out. Raido smiled and said that was okay. Even if the order came from the top, Aizen had the right to decide what to do during the mission. Raido told him to stay calm and look at the situation before acting. Varin felt sad that Kagarina wasn't there to send them off. She had scolded them before for risking their lives on missions. Aizen comforted her and said Kagarina was probably just worried about them. Because of that, he promised that the 3 of them would come back alive. Micah promised to protect Varin, her senior. Varin trusted Micah to support her. Aizen also said he would help however he could. He pulled out some explosive vials from his bag, getting ready. Soon, the team reached a large underground lake. Varin felt something strange. Her instincts told her the enemy was near. Suddenly, the water bubbled and something huge came out. The Aqua Hydra rose from the lake with a giant splash. It looked at them and let out a loud screech. It was the huge 7-headed water serpent they had heard about. Micah asked if Varin was ready, and she said she was. Varin then rushed forward, remembering what Aizen had told them earlier. A normal Hydra usually had 9 heads, but this one had only 7. Still, it was a dangerous monster that attacked with all its heads at once. The most dangerous part was its water breath magic. It could cut through almost anything, so weak defenses wouldn't work. Aizen had said there was only one way to fight back against it. Varin stayed focused as the monster began using its water breath magic. The monster attacked, but Micah told her not to worry because the blessing was protecting her. Varin rushed forward and the Aqua Hydra's attack was blocked by a shield that wrapped around her. The monster looked confused. With its strongest attack blocked, Aizen asked Micah for more support. Micah pushed her hands forward and cast a wind spell called Storm Blade. Sharp blades of air hit the monster's large body. Varin tried to get close and strike, but one of the monster's heads hit her. Luckily, her magic shield blocked the damage. Micah said that weak magic wouldn't be enough and called for Aizen's help. Aizen pulled out some explosive vials from his bag. Then Micah used an ice spell called Forest Savan and froze one of the monster's heads. At the same time, an explosive vial flew toward it. The frozen head exploded, leaving only the neck behind. Even though they could now block the water breath, the Aqua Hydra had another power. Right then, the head that was destroyed grew back. They realized they couldn't win unless they found a weak spot on the monster's body. Varin promised to find it. Thanks to Micah's priestess blessing, the team could dodge attacks more easily. With Varin's super sixth sense, they had a chance to hit the monster's weak spots. It had to be a fast and focused battle. The teamwork between the 2 girls was the key. Aizen had expected trouble from an S-ranked monster, but the Hydra's healing speed was faster than he thought. Still, the frozen heads could be destroyed with explosives. If he could stop just one more head and support Varin, they might actually win. If they beat the Aqua Hydra, Aizen could prove to everyone that being strong wasn't about large numbers, and even someone who had been cast out them could make a difference. The monster began charging up another water breath attack. Micah said it wouldn't work because she had already used blessings on Viren. But instead of aiming at them, the monster shot at the cave ceiling. Aizen was confused. Suddenly, the ceiling came crashing down and rocks started falling everywhere. Aizen quickly protected Micah. Viren tried to help them, but the Aqua Hydra attacked her. Luckily, her power to block physical attacks activated again. This was the second time it had worked. Aizen started to worry. That power could only block physical attacks 3 times, even though it could stop magic attacks as much as needed. With only 1 use left, he wasn't sure they could stop all of the monster's heads. It was too risky. Viren finally made it back to Aizen and Micah. Aizen told them they had to retreat. While dust filled the air, they used the chance to run. But when they reached the exit, it was blocked by fallen rocks. Their only way out was gone. Micah said the situation was bad. To clear the rubble, she had to remove the priestess blessing and use a powerful attack. But she knew the monster would take that chance to hit them with its water breath. Even though she had 1 physical attack block left, it would still be almost impossible to get her balance back and dodge past the monster's 7 heads. Aizen felt guilty for putting the girls in danger. He blamed himself. Viren spoke up saying there had to be a way out. She reminded Aizen that he was the one who taught her how to use her powers. If it was Aizen, she believed he could come up with something. Hearing her words made Aizen remember his past. As a child, an adventurer once told him to use his eyes to guide others. That person said talent wasn't the most important thing. It was what supported that talent: friends. Aizen suddenly realized that things had changed so fast around him that he had forgotten his true purpose. He didn't want to prove that outcasts or those who were exiled were better than others. He just wanted to show that everyone, even those treated unfairly, had their own way to shine. With that realization, Aizen turned to Viren. He hugged her and thanked her. Her face turned red. Aizen told the girls how grateful he was to have them as companions. Then he calmly told them to hide behind the nearby rocks. He needed to find a way to stop the Aqua Hydra's next move. While they were hiding, Aizen asked Micah if the priestess blessing could also be used on objects. Micah said it was possible, but explained that even if they changed the target, the number of times it could block physical attacks wouldn't reset during the fight. They still only had 1 use left. Aizen then wondered if something like impact counted as a physical attack. Micah wasn't sure. After thinking for a moment, Aizen shared his plan. He wanted Viren to focus on dodging and keeping the monster busy for now. Micah got worried about leaving Viren without protection, but Viren told her not to worry. She believed she could handle it. She felt confident, like she could dodge anything. Micah called Aizen a sinful man, though Aizen didn't really understand why Viren was so excited. Still, he noticed that Viren had become someone they could rely on. Micah also said she would trust Aizen's judgment. Aizen felt happy to hear that, and the 3 of them bumped fists to begin their plan. Aizen reminded Viren not to take too many risks. As she walked away, Viren told them not to worry. Then she ran out from behind the rock, and the Aqua Hydra noticed her right away. Micah removed the priestess blessing from Viren and tried to hold on until they could lead the Hydra away. When the monster got distracted by Viren, Aizen and Micah rushed out from behind the rock. Aizen quickly threw his bag and hoped his plan would work. He asked Micah to bless the bag. She used her priestess blessing on it. The bag was filled with small explosive vials packed tightly inside. These vials were made to explode when they hit something. But because of the blessing, the bag would not explode just from falling. The bag dropped into the lake and slowly sank to the bottom. Aizen gave Micah a signal, and right away she created a large icicle spear. She sent it flying toward the sinking bag. The spear hit the bag and pierced through it, but at first nothing happened. The monster growled, and everyone began to worry. Then the ground rumbled. Suddenly, the whole lake exploded, blasting the monster high into the air. Could this be the Outcast Guild's amazing comeback? After that, the team moved into their new home. It was located in the suburbs, but still close enough to the city for easy travel. Around that time, Kagarina showed up with a visitor for Aizen. A girl arrived, saying she was honored to meet him. She explained that her old team had kicked her out because her stats were too low. But after hearing the stories about Aizen, she came right away, hoping she could join. Aizen told her she was definitely welcome. Along with Viren and Micah, he welcomed her into the Outcast Guild. The girl happily thanked Aizen and shook his hand. She introduced herself as Colette Husqvarna, an adventurer who relied on determination and courage. As Viren started to panic, Kagarina tried to calm her down and then mentioned that she brought some gifts for their new home. Aizen thanked her for both the gifts and for helping them get settled in. He asked if it was okay for her to be away from her shop. Kagarina told him not to worry. Other staff were handling it. and added that her father would visit Aizen soon. He had sent a message asking Aizen to get along with him as fellow guildmasters. Micah wondered if that was really the reason, pointing out how Kagarina had clung to Aizen just a few days earlier. Kagarina told her to be quiet. Micah kept teasing her and even got Viren involved. Aizen felt happy that everyone was getting along. Colette said their guild seemed like a fun place and she was glad she came. Aizen smiled, thinking about how they now had a new base and a new member. Since Colette would be joining soon, he used his appraisal eyes on her. Every person had a unique hidden skill, and even though Colette had been cast out, he believed she had one too. When he saw her hidden skill, he was too shocked to say a word. A few days later, newspapers showed headlines about a new guild made up of expelled adventurers who had defeated the Aqua Hydra. After the monster was taken down, the Adventurers Guild Federation shared the report with the public. This caused a lot of talk among adventurers everywhere. People were shocked. The Aqua Hydra was the same monster that had once beaten an S-ranked team called Aegis. Yet this time, it was defeated by a group of adventurers who had all been kicked out of their former guilds. People many had thought were weak and useless. Because of this, the rumors spread even more. Still, some didn't believe it. Many people held on to the idea that exiled adventurers were nothing but failures with no talent. That opinion didn't seem like it would change soon. Even so, Aizen felt calm and at peace in their new base. With help from Raido and Kagarina, they finally set up a proper headquarters. Since they had officially formed a guild, it no longer made sense to hang around the Avalon Guild. More importantly, they wanted a place where other outcasts could feel welcome. Thanks to the reward they got for defeating the Aqua Hydra, they had enough money to buy a used building. This place became the new headquarters of the Outcast Guild and their official base of operations. Just then, someone walked in. It was Colette, cheerfully greeting Aizen while carrying some firewood. Aizen asked if she had chopped the firewood herself. Colette smiled and said it was as easy as making breakfast. Since she was the newest member, she felt it was her job to help with things like that. Aizen thanked her. Colette then asked if the others were still asleep. Aizen said the two girls worked hard in the dungeon the day before, so he wanted to let them rest a bit longer. Colette was cheerful, hardworking, and always willing to help. She got along well with Viren and Micah, and there didn't seem to be any problems between them. But for Aizen, Colette had become one of the big challenges the guild had to deal with. Later on, Aizen brought everyone to a nearby forest to test what Colette could do. Colette held her halberd and asked if this was some kind of strength test. Viren said it wasn't anything that serious, it was just to check how well Colette could work with the team. Aizen agreed and told everyone to fight the monsters like they usually did. He asked Viren and Micah to support the group as always. It didn't take long before monsters appeared. Colette moved to the front. Aizen explained that they were hobgoblins, B-ranked monsters that weren't too strong alone, but could be dangerous in groups. He reminded everyone to stay alert. Colette listened carefully and jumped into action. She leaped into the air and swung her halberd. The monsters began to fall one after another. Excited, Colette rushed ahead, ready to defeat even more. Aizen knew Colette wasn't weak. She used to be part of an A-rank party, which meant she was a skilled adventurer. But before she could reach S-rank, she got kicked out because her numbers on the status scanner were too low. Maybe because they had gone through similar things, Colette and Viren became friends quickly. Colette shared everything about herself, and Aizen could only think that she seemed like an ordinary adventurer. He didn't feel anything special about her, good or bad. But his appraisal eyes saw something different in her. Colette was doing fine during the fight until she slipped and fell. The monster tried to attack her, but luckily Viren stepped in and stabbed it. Micah then followed up with a fire spell that burned the monster into ashes. Colette couldn't say a word. The two girls asked if she was okay and told her not to push herself too much. Colette said sorry for being clumsy. While everyone laughed and relaxed, Micah noticed that Aizen looked deep in thought. Later, the group got their reward from Kagarina for completing the monster hunt. Micah walked over to Aizen and asked what Colette's hidden skill was. Aizen said it was something interesting. Kagarina noticed something was off. She joked that Aizen always spoke vaguely when he was feeling stressed. Aizen was surprised. Kagarina said she could tell he was worried about something. Aizen laughed a little, feeling caught. He wasn't sure if he was really worried, but maybe she was right. He said that Colette might be the key to a question he had been wondering about for a long time. He thought she might help him find the answer. Aizen used his appraisal eyes again. Surprisingly, their new teammate didn't have any hidden skills at all. In a flashback, a young Aizen once asked a man if he was a great adventurer. The man said he was just an ordinary one. But Aizen told him that he had a strange power that could protect the village from monsters. The man was surprised that someone so young could notice that. He then told Aizen to listen carefully to what he was about to say. But before he could finish, the memory ended. Aizen slowly opened his eyes. It was another calm morning. He thought to himself that he had just seen an old dream. It was a memory from when he was a child. And he wondered if it meant anything. Maybe it was because of the recent fight with the Aqua Hydra, or maybe because of their new guild member. He He thought it was probably because of Colette. He still hadn't told Colette about the hidden skills. He wondered if she would accept it if she found out. Colette didn't have a hidden skill, which made Aizen wonder why. Was that even possible? Even though he had appraisal eyes that could see things, there were still many things he didn't know about hidden skills. Just then, Varin and Micah came out of their room and greeted him. Aizen greeted them back and offered them something to drink. Micah joked about how early the guildmaster had gotten up. Aizen said he woke up because of a dream from the past. He told them it was a memory of an adventurer he met when he was a kid. That memory was what inspired him to become a guildmaster. Varin said she thought that part of him was cute. Then Colette showed up and greeted everyone. Varin said Colette was so cheerful, even early in the morning, and said she wanted to be like her. Colette laughed and said being full of energy was her only strong point. Then she noticed Varin's messy hair. Varin got embarrassed and ran off to fix it. Aizen was confused. He thought Varin already had a messy strand sticking up from the start. Micah quickly told Aizen never to say that in front of Varin. Just as Colette asked what the guild would do that day, Harrier the hawk appeared at the window. Aizen asked what was wrong, and the bird pointed its beak at its foot. A message was tied there. Aizen opened it and saw that it was from Kagarina. In the letter, Kagarina said that a guest had arrived at the Avalon Guild, someone she thought would surprise Aizen. Aizen wondered who it could be. Micah also read the letter and noticed that no name was given. Since Kagarina brought it up, Aizen guessed it must be someone important, but he couldn't think of anyone like that. Later, on Daytona's main street, shop owners and people from food stalls happily greeted Aizen and the girls. Micah commented on how popular her guildmaster had become and said it wouldn't be long before more outcasts came to join them. Varin looked excited about that idea. Aizen said he still had a lot to learn and needed to become a guildmaster people could trust. He even wondered if growing a beard would help. The girls pictured it for a moment and told him that his appearance didn't matter, as he already looked fine. At that moment, Colette noticed that most adventurers were now wearing status scouters. She said she used to wear one too before she joined the Outcast Guild, but Aizen's strong belief that an adventurer's worth couldn't be measured by numbers had changed her. She promised to follow him no matter what. Aizen thanked her. Still, he felt a small pain in his heart. The truth was, it was hard to carry the responsibility of someone who didn't have a hidden skill. But even so, Aizen would never leave Colette behind. She may not have had a special power, but she could lift everyone's mood. That made her more valuable than any number could show. Later at the Avalon Guild, Kagarina welcomed the group. Aizen quickly asked who the visitor was. Kagarina said the guest was someone very important and she let them use the meeting room upstairs. Just then, someone called out to Colette, surprised to see her in Daytona. A bald man said it was such a coincidence. Colette clearly knew them and said their names. The bald man explained that they were also starting to work in Daytona and hoped they could enjoy the new place together. Aizen asked if they knew each other. Colette didn't know what to say, so the bald man explained for her. He said they used to be in the same team, Thor's Hammer, but they kicked Colette out. He laughed about it. Somehow, Colette laughed along too. Aizen then realized that these people were Colette's old team. The bald man pointed out that Colette had low stats and said they only followed the trend. Varin got angry, but Colette stopped her. Colette admitted that her skills weren't very strong. Varin couldn't hide her feelings, especially since she had also been kicked out of a group for the same reason. Then the bald man noticed they weren't wearing status scouters. He guessed they were too embarrassed to show their stats. He said their team must be a weak, low-level group and that they matched well with Colette. Varin gave him a sharp look. The bald man went on, saying that they were the strong ones in the upper ranks, and people like Colette belonged with the lower ranks. He called it knowing your place. Kagarina snapped and warned the bald man not to bring that kind of attitude or thinking into the Avalon Guild. Aizen stepped in and stopped her, staring firmly at the bald man. The bald man thought Aizen was trying to pick a fight. He told Aizen not to mess with them since they were from Thor's Hammer, an S-ranked guild. But Aizen said he didn't care what rank they were. He wasn't going to stay quiet while his guild, the Outcasts, was being insulted. He told them to take back what they said. Colette was surprised. In the Avalon Guild, thanks to Rado and Kagarina, only a few people still looked down on the Outcasts. But outside the guild, most people still believed that those with low stats were useless and deserved to be treated badly. Aizen started his guild to fight against that unfair thinking. Then one of the bald man's teammates asked if they were really from the Outcast Guild. He reminded the bald man that this was the same guild that had made headlines for defeating the Aqua Hydra. The bald man couldn't believe that a bunch of young people had done that. Aizen asked him in a serious tone what the problem was. He said if they were going to cause trouble for Kagarina and the guild, they could settle things outside. The other members of the Avalon Guild started cheering for Aizen. Kagarina couldn't believe how direct Aizen was, as always. Harrier then quietly reminded her of something, and Kagarina told the guests to wait a little longer. Suddenly someone came out of the meeting room and shouted, asking if they were really the Outcast Guild. Everyone looked up toward the second floor. A man in glasses and a noble-looking outfit walked down the stairs. He said he had been looking forward to meeting them and even called Aizen by his full name and title as commander. He shook Aizen's hand, leaving him speechless. Kagurina then explained that this was the guest who had asked to meet them. The man realized he had been rude and apologized for not introducing himself earlier. He said his name was Faust Multipla, the alchemist who invented the status scouter. It was a surprise to see such an important person appear. Aizen felt surprised when the Faust Multipla appeared. Micah said she had read about him, the man who became famous for making the status scouter useful. Faust said he felt honored that they knew his name. Aizen believed this man was the cause of the exile boom that created discrimination among adventurers, since he invented the status scouter. Faust then said he also knew a lot about them. He had heard about the Outcasts Guild, a group formed from people cast aside for having low numbers yet strong enough to defeat an Aqua Hydra. He wondered why people with low stats held such power. His curiosity pushed him forward without limits. Aizen asked what he meant. He also asked why a well-known inventor decided to visit them. Faust thanked him for keeping up. With a small smile, he said he wanted their data. They had surpassed S-ranked parties even with low numbers. If he could uncover that secret, he believed it would help many adventurers perform far better. He said that if he and Aizen worked together, they could help the entire world of adventurers. He believed that would be something great. The other adventurers watched in awe as the famous inventor invited someone in person. Many thought it was a clear path toward success. They waited to see what Aizen would choose. After staying quiet for a moment, Aizen said the status scouter was a tool that changed the adventurer world. He believed it was a great way to measure a person's ability and growth. At the same time, it also caused discrimination and unfair treatment. Faust thought he meant the exile boom, but he believed that if Aizen worked with him, they could get rid of such discrimination. He said everything he did was for people like them and for everyone here, so they could stand with the strong. Aizen told him that this path would only create another kind of discrimination. Faust could not answer. Aizen then said he could not work with him as things were right now. He wanted to end the exile boom that judged and removed adventurers. If Faust truly wished to help the adventurer world, then as the creator of the tool, he needed to face the problem and fix it first. Faust then realized that Aizen wanted to protect the weak. He said he understood that view, but he called it hypocrisy. This surprised Aizen and the others. Faust said the world was already divided into the strong and the weak, and that this was simply the law of nature. He added that the adventurers themselves were the ones who created the exile boom. Even if a tool was great, its effect depended on how people used it. He asked Aizen what responsibility he was talking about. The girls were confused and doubtful of this man. Faust then said he had visited Aizen's old school before coming here because Aizen once claimed during his student days that he could see the hidden abilities of others. Aizen calmly said it was true, which surprised everyone in the guild, especially the girls. Colette felt worried because he admitted it so openly. Faust then guessed that when Aizen gathered his comrades, he had been looking at their hidden abilities, which was why he could say that exiles still had value. But Faust also believed Aizen was not really choosing those adventurers himself. He claimed that when it came to numbers or abilities, the two of them were no different. He said he did not select people either but simply used them, which in his mind made him the more virtuous one. Viren tried to defend Aizen and said Faust's ideas were wrong. Faust then questioned her and pointed at the girls' success. He assumed they had superior abilities, but he wondered what would happen if they did not have those special powers. He told Aizen to take exiles who had both low values and no abilities. He asked if Aizen could honestly say he would accept them as comrades no matter what. Aizen said he could, and he spoke with complete certainty because that was what he had always done. Colette understood what he meant. Aizen said those girls had been hurt right in front of him. They had suffered and had depended on him. He had taken in children who were just like that. He admitted it was true that he could see a person's hidden skills. Faust pointed out that Aizen only used that power for the benefit of his guild. Aizen could not deny it, but he said the strength of the Outcast Guild did not come only from abilities. It also came from the bonds he shared with his comrades. Faust doubted that bonds or connections mattered at all. Aizen agreed that the status scouter was an amazing tool, but it had created the exile boom and caused misfortune for many people. He knew Faust understood that parties made only of high-stat members were failing to achieve real results. Faust looked guilty when he heard this. Aizen said that tools depended on the person who used them, and adventurers were not numbers but people. He said he would accept anyone who came to him and would never give up on them. He wanted to find a place and a method where each person's individuality could shine, and he wanted to think about that future together with them. The girls were touched by his words. He said that the resolve to use an ability and the responsibility that followed it were what separated the two of them. The girls felt proud of him, and even Kagarina was impressed that he had not changed since the old days. Faust started trembling with frustration. He could not believe that someone like him was being looked down on by a person he thought was average. He said he did not care if people without worth ended up suffering. He also could not believe that a group of people he saw as useless had the nerve to speak so boldly just because they had gained a small name for themselves. He warned Aizen not to act proud and then threw his gloves at Aizen's face. He challenged him to a duel. To be exact, he was challenging the Outcast Guild to a formal duel between adventurers. Thor's Hammer, the adventurer party walking behind Faust, wondered what they should do. One of them suggested escaping while they still had the chance. Faust heard them and then noticed they were S-ranked adventurers. He assumed they had enough members to stand as a strong group. Since he was not an adventurer himself, he chose to hire them for 2,000 gold coins and let them fight the duel for him. The adventurers were shocked. Even Aizen felt the same since that amount was double the reward for the subjugation of the Aqua Hydra, and Faust was throwing it around like spare change. Aizen thought that the money earned from the status scouter must have been massive. The girls whispered among themselves. Colette wondered how different a duel was from a normal fight. Micah explained that a duel was a way to settle conflicts between adventurers, approved by the Guild Federation to avoid pointless bloodshed between parties or guilds. The win condition was to be the first to finish the chosen task inside a dungeon, such as defeating a certain monster or collecting a certain item. The task was picked fairly by the Guild Federation. Colette had never heard of this before. Micah said it was normal that she did not know. Adventurers were usually hot-headed, so fights often started before anyone filed the proper papers. She added that ever since the exile boom, most conflicts had been internal, so clashes between parties had actually decreased. Micah then remembered something she had been trying not to think about. Varin praised her for knowing so much about the system. Even Colette respected her. Micah felt shy and said her old party had been challenged a few times in the past. Suddenly, the bald leader of Thor's Hammer smiled. He seemed happy that they would not be fighting directly. He said they could not refuse a job that paid 2,000 gold coins. Micah then wondered what her master would choose to do. After thinking about what happened earlier, she believed this was the perfect chance. Duels needed agreement from both sides. If one side refused, the Guild Federation would not approve the request. Sadly for the others, Aizen decided not to refuse. He had a habit of finishing every fight that someone tried to start with them. He agreed with Faust and said that the Outcast Guild would accept the duel. Faust was pleased and swore he would prove that the adventurers chosen by his status scouter were the superior ones. Faust told Aizen that the duel would happen in 10 days and warned him not to run away. Aizen could not believe how everything turned into a mess. Kagarina shouted in frustration and reminded him that their opponent was the inventor Faust. She pointed out that Faust was in a different league compared to any S-ranked party. Aizen agreed with that part, but he explained that Faust pushed the world into numericalism with his invention, and now he wanted to involve hidden skills as well. Aizen believed he could not support that kind of elitist thinking. Micah said they already suffered a lot from the exile boom caused by numericalism, but this duel was a chance to prove themselves. Varin added that they would win to show that numbers were not the only measure of a person's worth. She also said this was their chance to spread Aizen's beliefs to everyone. Aizen explained it was not only about numbers or hidden skills. They wanted a world where adventurers could use their own traits and not be punished for low stats. He said this duel was a step toward ending the exile boom. After hearing his resolve, Colette remembered Aizen's power to see someone's hidden abilities. She also realized that Micah and Varin already knew their master's power and understood their own hidden skills. Colette had never heard anything about hers yet. She felt unsure for a moment but chose to trust him as well. She hoped she could surprise her former teammates. Everyone felt motivated and they all cheered together. Just then, someone said the situation finally became interesting. Raido could not believe that Aizen ended up fighting Faust of all people. He said he never got bored watching Aizen. Aizen felt confused because he never saw himself as the one who started fights. Raido walked closer and said it was not really different. He said he liked that kind of firm action from him. Raido was currently with Avalon, one of the 3 major guilds. He served as the guild master and focused on training the next generation. In his younger years, he had been a top adventurer known as the Thunder Wolf. Seeing adventurers argue again seemed to stir up his old excitement. Even so, Raido wanted Aizen to stay careful. He said Faust was a troublesome opponent. Because of his invention, Faust now had a strong connection to the Adventurers Guild Federation. Many people in the Federation were willing to listen to him if he paid enough gold. The duel also had to go through the Federation, so Aizen assumed Faust could fix the event to give himself an advantage. With the Federation approving everything through formal steps, no one would really know what Faust planned behind the scenes. Kagarina then told her father to handle the problem if he understood it. She called him useless for being a Star Emperor. Raido explained that Faust worked closely with Volk's faction and he could not interfere that easily. Aizen remembered that Volk Leopold, one of the 4 great star emperors like Raido, was a harsh meritocrat who never worked well with other factions. Volk was also the head of the Hecatoncheires, one of the 3 major guilds that AIGIs belonged to. The Adventurers Guild Federation was a massive group that connected all adventurers and guilds around the world. Even among the 4 great star emperors, their beliefs and factions were different. Many people in the Federation were not willing to listen to Raido. Knowing how careful and clever Faust was, Aizen assumed he would bribe those close to Volk to gain an upper hand in the duel. Raido explained that Faust was well known for his pride and that he never forgave anyone who insulted him or his inventions. Raido believed the inventor would prepare a flashy duel to show the results of his work to the crowd. Aizen then pictured a duel between the so-called exiled adventurers with low stats and Faust, the creator of the machine that caused their problem. He calmly thought it was the perfect matchup. Kagarina then scolded him for treating the situation like a joke and tightened her grip on his head. She told him to think about the people who cared about him. She reminded him that they had reached this point only because they kept going even when things were hard. She feared everything they had gained might be put at risk after the duel. Tears came out as she wondered how he could laugh in such a moment. Aizen explained it was because he had his comrades and Kagarina beside him. He remembered the moments when Micah was taken away and when they were trapped by the Aqua Hydra. Back then, he felt everything was hopeless. But the things he thought were impossible became possible because of the people around him. That was why he could smile and move forward without fear. Kagarina said it was because everyone kept pushing him onward. The girls looked touched by his words. Raido thought Aizen was speaking boldly, even though his current pose did not look cool. Aizen also claimed a guildmaster always looked cooler if he stood tall with a smile. Kagarina became annoyed and told him she was not asking for his ideal picture of a guildmaster. Aizen almost passed out from being choked. Raido laughed at Aizen's calm behavior and joked that he might end up liking him even more than his own daughter. Kagarina angrily tossed Aizen toward her father and told him to be quiet, then walked away while saying she hated everyone. Raido told her to go easy on Aizen but promised he would help however he could. For him, meddling was part of being a middle-aged man. He said he would keep an eye on things and told Aizen to focus on the duel. Aizen and the girls agreed. Even so, on the day of the duel, Aizen was shocked. A massive screen showed the faces of both him and Faust. Faust held a tool that made his voice louder and announced the start of the duel between Thor's hammer and the Outcast Guild. The crowd roared with excitement. Aizen never imagined the duel would grow into something this large. Faust shouted from the top of his lungs as he welcomed everyone who had come. The whole place was filled with people. He announced that the match would feature the S-ranked party called Thor's Hammer against the Outcast Guild, who had defeated the Aqua Hydra. He said this would be a duel with their pride on the line. He hoped everyone would enjoy the show with all their hearts. Colette was surprised to see so many people. Viren grew nervous when she heard the loud cheers. Micah complained about how noisy everything felt. Aizen, confused, asked Faust what was going on. Faust then asked if it looked impressive. He said the giant magic projector and the magic amplifier were his own inventions. He explained that these tools would show the duel to the crowd in clear detail with the help of his magic drone. Even Faust could not believe he had managed to build something like that. He felt frightened by his own talent. Aizen said he was not asking about that. He wanted to know why such a huge crowd was present. Faust said it was because he had advertised the duel with great excitement. He wanted everyone to see Aizen's supposed defeat. Aizen realized Faust would not be satisfied until he ruined their reputation. He finally understood how large Faust's ego was. He also knew Faust had bribed the judges sent by the Alliance. Faust announced that the rules of the duel were simple. The competitors had to find the Flare Queen blooming at the summit. The first person to bring it back would win, but he explained that this was not an easy gathering task. The item was in the Man-Eater Canyon, a place where many adventurers died and where many monsters waited inside. He told everyone to move to the starting line. Colette then noticed that only the bald man from her old team had shown up, and he was now with 2 new people. She wondered where the other 2 members were. The bald man said he removed them because he had accepted a job worth 2,000 gold coins. Colette could not believe him. Faust explained that this duel was meant to prove the strength of adventurers chosen by his status scouter. Even Aizen found it hard to believe that Faust changed the team lineups. Since Faust would be watching from a safe spot as a client, he simply helped the bald man gather strong teammates. If they thought it was unfair, they were free to search the crowd for someone with good hidden skills. But the moment Aizen added anyone not listed in the application, the team would be disqualified. Aizen accepted his challenge and planned to show their true power. The adventurers walked to the starting line. Faust took the voice-amplifying device and told them to place their pride as adventurers in this duel. He then announced the start of the match. As they rushed forward, Colette promised herself she would try her best to be useful. Varin urged everyone in her group to aim for victory. Micah reminded them to stay close and not push themselves too hard. Faust kept speaking as the announcer. Both teams split to the left and right at the first fork. He said the choice of path here was the key to clearing the canyon. Suddenly, Varin sensed something strange and signaled the others to stop. Aizen assumed her skill had activated. Varin explained that she had a strong bad feeling about what was waiting ahead. She sensed an ambush, and for some reason she could feel not only monsters but also people mixed among them. Micah thought there should not be any bandits in the canyon. She believed even Faust would not dare send assassins into a public duel. Aizen looked at the magic drone. He also doubted Faust would try a cheap sabotage after setting up a grand event. If his drones caught bandits on camera, the crowd would demand a rematch. Still, Varin could be right. He asked her to point out the location of the ambush. Varin confirmed she could. Aizen then told Micah to prepare a surprise attack of their own. At the same time, the S-ranked party moved forward while clearing the monsters in their path. The swordsman confidently slashed at a monster. The mage behind him complained and told him to hit once, then back away, since he could not cast his magic. The swordsman became distracted and the bald man used the chance to finish the monster with his hammer. The swordsman almost got hit and complained to the bald man. The leader told him not to worry about small things. He then noticed his hand bleeding and asked the mage for a potion. The mage refused and said he would never give him one. He complained that muscleheads like them wasted their money on booze while he spent his on costly magic tools. The bald man felt surprised. He remembered how his old teammate acted differently. His former partner always talked about what was best for the team, like not ignoring wounds and staying aware of everything around them. He complained that his new party was terrible. The mage and swordsman argued back and said they would never have teamed up with a meathead like him if it were not for the gold. Faust listened in secret and thought they were fools. For now, he continued his job as the announcer and proudly shared how Thor's hammer defeated another monster. Their voices could not be heard by the crowd, so he assumed they were praising each other. He said this was expected from a well-known S-ranked party. He also said the outcast guild members were simply making the monsters sleep again. He complained that they were not very flashy. Among the crowd, Raido and Kagurina watched the event while staying disguised. Kagurina wondered if Aizen and the others were all right. Raido then noticed something strange. He realized they were being ambushed by adventurers hired by Faust. Normally, cheating would be caught right away, but using monsters changed everything. Kagurina understood her father was talking about a beast tamer. As a fellow beast tamer, she knew trained monsters were stronger than wild ones. They could choose when to attack. It was a planned way to drain the team's stamina without the audience noticing. The monsters fighting Thor's hammer were also too weak for that area. Raido guessed some hidden mages were casting weakening spells from the flying magic drone's blind spots. Anything that happened off-screen was something the audience would never learn about. Kagurina also believed the judges already knew about the cheating because Faust had paid them well. But Raido said these people were still underestimating the Outcast Guild. He explained that Varin could sense incoming attacks, turning her into a natural radar. When combined with Micah's sleep magic, they could avoid useless fights. He could see that Faust's plan was falling apart and he assumed the so-called genius was now panicking. Raido was correct. Faust was panicking inside. He wondered why the ambush failed as he watched the Outcast Guild heading straight for the summit. At that moment, the two teams finally met on the same road and moved side by side. After seeing each other, both teams sprinted. It became a straight race toward the summit where the Flare Queen was blooming. The question now was who would reach it first. Aizen noticed that Varin and Micah were already getting tired. They could not avoid every fight on the way. Thanks to the two girls, they still reached the summit in record time, but using their hidden abilities again and again had pushed them close to their limits. At that moment, Colette told them to let her take over. She rushed ahead and left the others behind. Aizen asked her to wait because he knew she was also close to her limit after all the battles in the canyon. Varin could strike weak points with ease, but Colette had no hidden skills and fought in a normal way, so she had to work much harder than anyone else just to keep up. Still, Colette wanted to prove that she could be useful. She believed that even without special skills, she still had courage and a strong will, and that was everything she could rely on. She sprinted forward as her life depended on it. The vanguard from the other team was shocked when Colette caught up to him with almost no effort. Aizen called out to her, and at that moment, Varin sensed something and told Colette to stop and not take another step. Colette heard her and stopped right away. Faust commented that the Outcast Guild had suddenly stopped moving. He said Thor's hammer would now win the duel. He claimed that a group of outcasts challenging an S-ranked party should not have happened in the first place. But even Faust became confused when something appeared on the large screen. The swordsman turned back toward his team and called them fools for giving up the fight. He was too late to notice the winged monster standing behind him. Faust shouted that this could not be real. He said it was an extremely dangerous, rare species even among S-ranked monsters. Everyone froze as the swordsman fell victim to the monster's claws. Still confused, Faust asked why a lesser demon had appeared. Meanwhile, the two exiled members of Thor's hammer moved quietly into the canyons. Jackson looked around with careful steps while Buick wondered why they even come. Jackson felt upset and believed he would not feel better unless he caused trouble for Dodge, who removed them from the team. Buick warned him that they could be pushed out of the adventurer world if they interfered with the duel. Jackson said he already knew that. He thought Dodge acted foolishly in removing Colette from the team just because it became a trend. Jackson also carried many other complaints. Buick could tell he had kept a lot inside, but he still believed Dodge was not a bad person. Buick said Dodge was tricked easily. Jackson said that was why they always had to handle his mistakes. After a long breath, he decided they should just go home. He wanted Dodge to learn on his own how much he needed them. As they turned to leave, something fell in front of them. Jackson froze when he realized it was the man who joined Dodge as their replacement. The swordsman lay on the ground, dead, with many holes covering his body. Jackson slowly looked up and wondered what was happening at the peak. Meanwhile, Dodge was knocked out by the lesser demon that swung the dead mage around. Aizen could not believe what happened. Everything took place in an instant. The mage tried to run by himself, but the lesser demon closed the distance with its wings and struck in a quick flash. Dodge, who stood nearby, was then sent flying by the monster's arm. Aizen and the girls watched as the lesser demon dropped the dead mage and stared at them. Aizen explained that a lesser demon was a rare type of monster, and very dangerous even for an S-ranked fighter. Viren remembered it was the kind of creature that could defeat experienced S-ranked parties. Micah could not believe they ran into a monster known as the Devil's Kin. She believed their luck had turned bad. Dodge tried to stand and complained that his 2,000 gold coins vanished into the air. Colette covered him and told him to stay awake. Since things had come to this point, Aizen assumed their duel was no longer happening. With the monster's strength and speed, he doubted they could escape while Colette was tired and Dodge was injured. If they made one mistake, they could be wiped out. He tried to decide whether to run or fight. At that moment, Micah calmly asked if Viren could see the lesser demon's weak point. Viren confirmed it was near the center of its chest. Micah guessed it was close to the heart. The two girls stepped forward with confident movements and showed no fear. Micah believed they would not escape alive anyway, so she chose to fight. Viren agreed and followed her. Aizen was surprised for a moment but quickly showed a smile. He chose to join the others in the fight. He told Colette to leave the battle to them and bring Dodge to safety. Colette tried to refuse, but Aizen pointed out that she had already reached her physical limit. If Dodge did not get treatment soon, he might die. He told her to focus on her task. Colette felt stunned. She said nothing and went to carry Dodge away. As the two tried to escape, the lesser demon fixed its attention on them. It moved forward at high speed, but Viren stepped in and blocked its path. She refused to let the monster reach Colette. She went for a stab attack, but the monster stopped in midair right before the blade could hit. Both Viren and Aizen were shocked. The monster then flew upward and attacked again, this time aiming at Viren. While Viren faced the monster, Aizen called out to Micah. Micah said it was fine. The monster's attack bounced off because her hidden skill, called Shrine Maiden's Blessing, had already been placed on Viren. Viren used that moment to stab at the monster's weak point. To her surprise, the lesser demon blocked the strike with its iron-like arm. She could not believe it. The monster tried to hit her with its other hand, so Viren kicked its blocking arm and created distance before returning to Aizen's side. Her kick left a dent in the monster's arm, which shocked her even more. She had thought they caught it off guard. Aizen realized the lesser demon understood its own weakness. Micah said they only needed to create an opening and started casting an ice spell. The lesser demon noticed her preparing the spell. Micah then launched several icicles at the flying monster. The demon crossed its arms to shield its chest and flew toward them with a confident look. Seeing this, Aizen moved in front of Micah and pushed her out of danger. The lesser demon landed where she had been standing a moment earlier. Viren tried to counterattack, but the monster quickly took off again and gained distance to stay safe. Aizen claimed the monster had been testing them to see if they could find its weak point, or if they had the strength to break through its defenses. He saw how it guarded its weak spot, countered their attacks, and used hit-and-run tactics. Aizen noticed it fought the way a human warrior would. This made Micah realize that the lesser demon's greatest weapon was not its strength or speed, but its sharp intelligence. No wonder its way of living was kept a mystery. Aizen thought the monster knew it had more stamina than they did, so it was preparing for a long fight to wear them down and defeat them one at a time. It felt less like facing a monster and more like facing a trained fighter. If it was being careful like that, then Viren aiming at its weak point must have been a real threat to it. Thinking about this made Aizen notice something important. He believed things might turn in their favor. He told Micah and Viren that they could use the lesser demon's intelligence against it. Meanwhile, Colette carried Dodge all the way down the canyon. She worried about everyone left at the peak. Her master had allowed her and Dodge to escape because he was worried for their safety. She felt like she was only dragging everyone down again. At that moment, Jackson and Buick found them. Colette asked why they were in the canyon, but Jackson focused on asking what was happening above. Colette explained that a lesser demon had appeared, which shocked both of them. Jackson said it sounded bad and urged her to leave the canyon with them. Colette instead asked them to take care of Dodge. They were surprised and asked if she was planning to return. Jackson said fighting a lesser demon was suicide and begged her to come back. He apologized for not stopping Dodge's foolish choice to kick her out of the group. He said that he and Buick now understood how it felt to be pushed away. He said he was tired of it and promised not to let Dodge act carelessly anymore, then asked her to rejoin them. Colette told him she belonged to the Outcast Guild now. If she left her friends behind, she felt she could no longer call herself an adventurer with pride. Jackson called out to her, but Colette was already running back toward the peak. She hoped her master and the girls were still alive. She wanted to stand with them because she was part of their group. Varin would target the enemy's weakness with her hidden skill called Sixth Sense, while Micah would support her with Shrine Maiden's Blessing. The lesser demon they fought kept learning during the battle because it had high intelligence. Aizen believed they could use that against the creature. The lesser demon let out a violent roar. Aizen warned the girls that it was coming and reminded them to follow the plan. The fight had become a clash between the Outcast Guild and the lesser demon. Varin moved across the nearby stones and jumped toward the monster in the air. The demon struck first, but she stepped on its attacking arm. She aimed to stab it, and the monster instantly covered its weak spot. She realized it had taken the bait. Earlier, Aizen told her not to aim for its weak point and to go for its head instead. Because of that, the demon left its face open. Varin stabbed its face and damaged one of its eyes. This was exactly what Aizen predicted. Against the tough body of a lesser demon, Varin's power only worked well when she struck a weak point. The demon had lowered its guard, thinking attacks to non-weak points would not matter. It believed they would keep aiming only at its weak point, but as a living creature, a sudden attack to the eye forced a natural blink. Even a very short opening would be enough. Aizen then signaled Micah. The mage quickly chanted a light attack and pointed it at the demon while its eyes were shut. A beam of light shot through the monster and pierced its chest. The demon tried to speak in an unknown language and bled as it collapsed. This followed the strategy Aizen planned. He switched the roles of the girls. Varin created the opening while Micah delivered the finishing blow. He made them fully trade their usual duties. The monster dropped to the ground and dust filled the whole area. Aizen tried to see what happened, but the lesser demon suddenly stood up behind him and swung its claws toward him. He could not believe it was still moving with a hole in its chest. He wanted to dodge, but he knew it would be too late and that he would die. Colette showed up in time and blocked the monster's claw with her spear. Aizen was shocked to see her return. The monster became angry and changed targets. Aizen thought it was bad that it now aimed at Colette, who had no skills. Before it reached her, Varin appeared behind it. She pushed upward and stabbed the lesser demon. The monster let out a weak roar and faded away. Aizen said they saved him. Colette called to him, dropped to her knees, and apologized for coming back even after being told not to. Aizen told her not to do that. She said she would accept any punishment. Aizen said he would not punish her because he knew what might have happened if she had not returned. He also knew she would not leave Dodge in a bad state, so he had no reason to scold her. Instead, he thanked her for saving his life. Varin said Colette also had her thanks for protecting her master. Micah said the whole situation took years off her life. She said she failed to finish the lesser demon and that she put her master in danger, which made her think it was her fault. She also realized how impressive Varin was. Aizen said the two of them adapted well to the sudden change of plans and told them to be glad that everyone survived a fight against a lesser demon. He already forgot about the two dead S-ranked adventurers. He then remembered they needed to head down soon and report what happened. For now, he chose to ignore the Flare Queen flower. He expected the Federation to understand once he explained the situation. However, at that moment, he forgot that the magic drone behind them was showing everything that happened. Everyone in the town square roared with excitement. Faust panicked on the inside. He could not believe what he saw. Even someone like him, who was not an adventurer, knew how dangerous a lesser demon was. He was sure that Thor's hammer would lose the moment the monster appeared, and he thought the Outcast Guild would fall with them. Yet they defeated it. Adventurers who saw the fight began to think the Outcast Guild was impressive. Some of them realized they had looked down on people with low numbers for too long. They guessed they could not judge adventurers by numbers alone. Faust found the situation troubling. He ran away to escape the scene. The adventurers were now accepting the strength of the outcasts. At this rate, his rare invention and his place as a genius would be in danger. He rushed into an alley and cursed Aizen and his group. He planned to pay the Federation again, believing they would create enough evidence to claim that Aizen cheated. Just then, A small puppy and a hawk appeared and surprised him. Faust let out a weak shout and fell on his butt. He wondered why a stray dog showed up out of nowhere while being carried by a hawk. Kagarina appeared and told Harrier and Alex to stay calm. She said a man like Faust was not worth hitting. Faust wondered why she called him small. She said she was going to pick up Aizen and asked her father to handle the rest. When Raido stepped forward, Faust quickly blamed him for causing the interference. He assumed Raido's daughter brought a lesser demon to embarrass him. Raido looked shocked and said such a thing was impossible. Faust told him to stay quiet and warned him that he would not escape punishment. Raido then turned to the person behind him and asked for an opinion about Faust's claims. The hooded man said that if Raido's daughter could control a lesser demon, she would already be a far better adventurer than most of them. Raido simply wished his daughter could relax more. When Faust recognized the old man's voice, cold sweat ran down his back. The old man was Galaic, the representative of the Adventurer Guild Federation. Faust nervously asked why he was in the area. Galaic said he heard that promising youngsters were dueling, so he came in secret. He said that thanks to Faust's flashy advertisement, he discovered something. It was not the duel, but the slush funds, bribes, and rigged matches. He said there would be a full investigation, and he was glad he could clear out the rotten parts of the Federation as well. He told the inventor to prepare for a proper punishment. Soon after the duel, many Federation officials received heavy punishment for corruption, and Faust's name was included. Because of this, the exile boom caused by the status scouter slowly calmed down. The Outcast Guild became known to more adventurers, not only to those who heard about their Aqua Hydra hunt. Galaic then said it was time for the Adventurer Guild Federation representative to speak directly with Aizen Tesla. Later in Daytona's well-known cafe, Kagarina talked about how Aizen had become a big shot because it was rare for the representative to meet a rookie guildmaster. Micah said it was all thanks to the problems they had solved. Viren felt happy because her master's hard work was finally getting a bit of attention. Kagarina wondered what kind of person the representative was. Colette said the representative was so high up that she could not even imagine it. She took a bite of cake, enjoyed the taste, and shared it with the others. Micah also shared her cake. Viren enjoyed each bite. Kagarina then wondered if Aizen had already reached Bium. At the Adventurers Guild Federation headquarters, Aizen was greeted by a secretary who offered to guide him to the representative's office. A week had passed since his duel with Faust. The duel was declared void because of the lesser demon that appeared. Thanks to the wide broadcast, many people learned what really happened. Faust's bribery scandal also came to light and grew into a major issue that involved the whole Federation. Aizen wondered how the old man he had met before was doing. He guessed the man worked at the headquarters and hoped he had not caused trouble for him. Aizen knocked on the representative's door, still unsure who he would face. To his surprise, the representative was the same old man he had met and helped earlier. Galaic said he was glad to see him again. Aizen felt shocked. Galaic asked if he was surprised, then introduced himself as the Federation's representative, and thanked Aizen for answering his call. After the secretary served tea, Galaic noticed how nervous the young guildmaster was. He suggested speaking casually like before. Aizen felt that it was impossible because his mind was still blank after learning that the old man was actually the representative. Galaic then talked about their achievements, especially the duel against Faust. He said everything they did was impressive. Aizen said it was his guild members who fought, not him. The representative told him there was no need to be humble because Aizen was the one who gathered those members, trained their skills, and earned their trust. Then he placed something on the table. He thanked Aizen for granting the wish of an old man named Galaic and said Aizen was his benefactor. Aizen was shocked. It was the same pendant he found in the underground labyrinth he first explored with Viren. He knew the client was a former adventurer, but he never thought the pendant belonged to the representative. The old man asked if he had never looked inside because his name was engraved there. After hearing that, Aizen remembered Viren reading the name, but he never imagined it was the representative himself. Aizen said that ever since he entered the office, surprises kept coming one after another and he felt like his lifespan was shrinking. Galaic said that would be a problem because he wanted him to live a long life as the hope of the outcasts. He then said he heard from Raido about Aizen's ability to see the abilities people hid. Aizen confirmed that he could see a person's individuality, which he called hidden skills. Galaic said he had seen many guildmasters who believed in their own strength, those who relied on their experience as adventurers, and those who chased wealth and fame. He said guildmasters who held strong ideals like Aizen always had a clear reason behind them. It was only his guess, but he asked if there was someone who gave Aizen the words he lived by. Aizen felt shocked. He was also impressed. Now he understood why an old man like him could be the representative. The old man laughed and said that no one could hide anything from him. Aizen admitted that he was right. He remembered meeting a certain adventurer when he was a child. When he was 6, a fierce monster appeared near his home village. The villagers tried to kill it but failed. and many people were hurt or killed. At that time, a group of adventurers was returning from a labyrinth and decided to help. They volunteered to defeat the monster. The day before the fight, one adventurer learned about Aizen's special ability. That adventurer told him to use his eyes to guide others. But he also warned that talent alone was not the most important thing. What truly mattered was having comrades who supported that talent. Aizen understood those words now. No matter what the world said, he could not forgive people who neglected their friends. As a guildmaster, he wanted to support his comrades with all his heart. Gaelic wondered about the adventurer's name. He thought Aizen might know it if the adventurer was very skilled. Aizen said he missed the chance to ask back then. Gaelic asked if he wanted to meet that person again. Aizen said it would not happen because none of the adventurers who fought the monster survived. He had seen the evidence of the fierce battle. Since that day, whenever unknown adventurers risked their lives to help a village, Aizen had respected them. Now that he had become a guildmaster, the representative believed he had inherited the will of those nameless adventurers. Gaelic understood Aizen better now. He did not deny Faust's status as a skilled scout, but he valued bonds between comrades more. Aizen confirmed this. He explained that neither numbers nor his appraisal eyes were meant to punish the weak. If Faust had truly cared about the exiles and wanted to help them, he would have worked together without hesitation. But Faust only looked down on the weak. He cared more about being recognized for his intelligence and inventions. If they had shared the same ideals, things that Aizen could not do alone might have been achieved already. The old man noticed that Aizen seemed worried about something. Aizen said it was not something he could talk about casually. The old man called him honest for admitting his trouble. He told Aizen to speak because it was also the responsibility of an old man to listen to the worries of the young. Aizen laughed quietly. Normally, this was a problem he should have solved on his own, but he had no clues this time. He spoke about Colette, hoping for a miracle. The old man understood that Aizen had finally met someone without a hidden skill, and wondered how to guide them. Aizen admitted that he had always thought every person had a hidden skill. He had believed that people could not be judged by numbers alone, because everyone had some hidden ability. However, he had never expected that there could be people without those skills. Even so, he would not abandon Colette. As a guildmaster, he had a duty to guide his members. He felt ashamed to admit it, but he did not know how to guide Colette right now. Gaelic then explained that what Aizen saw with his eyes was not everything. His eyes could see possibilities, but they were not the full truth. He said that talent did not always decide the path of a person. The most important thing, he explained, was will. He asked Colette what she truly wanted. Gaelic said that sometimes the ears could tell more truth than the eyes. Still, he admitted that there were many hidden skills that even Aizen did not know about. Aizen had searched for documents on the subject but had found nothing. He always had many questions, especially about one thing. The secretary then asked if he was wondering whether hidden skills were determined at birth, acquired later in life, or if they could change. She said it was an interesting idea. Aizen was shocked to hear her mention it. Gaelic said he had an acquaintance who was very interested in Aizen's eyes, so he had called them ahead of time. He believed there was no one better in the world to answer these questions. Suddenly, the secretary transformed from a tall, serious woman into a small child wearing a tall witch's hat. The girl introduced herself as Malaris Ilushka, the guildmaster of the Adventurers Guild, Arianrod. Aizen was shocked to meet one of the four emperors in this way. On top of that, she had just demonstrated transformation magic. Her presence now felt completely different from before. Malari spoke excitedly about what she was seeing. She said Aizen's eyes were truly fascinating, thrilling, and remarkable. Her gaze carried a strange, almost sinister intensity, leaving Aizen unsure of what it truly meant.